Hello, look at that. We went right into the video. I don't have to worry about hearing it because I heard it. I know it was working. And this is the day after tomorrow. The day after we finally announced our big lineup. And one of the big ones is Pokemon Eldamon. Pokemon Eldamon? I meant Battlezoo Eldamon. Why did I say Pokemon? Because we were just
It's
talking
a
about
Freudian
Pokemon.
slip,
It is a Freudian
Steven.
slip. I don't know why I said that. Battlezoo Eldamon. Whoops.
Well,
And
I mean, there's no point, not to kind of discuss that. I think it's gonna be something that people are gonna discuss. But I mean,
yeah,
but
definitely.
the fact is that this is it's a very popular genre with Pokemon, Digimon, Monster Hunter, Monster stuff like that. So, I think it's cool to see that you guys are gonna put your spin on it and take your crack at it.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've been working on this pretty hard I've been working on it forever, but Mark and I've been talking
the brand
about
for
it.
like 25 years.
Yeah,
right?
I've had the URL and the brand and the company name,
right.
Battlezoo, for a long time. And
I've only kind of been working on it since I was full on hired to the company, but Steven told me that he wanted to do it someday. Like the first time I was doing the monster part stuff with him, he like quizzed me on a few things and he was like, yeah, so it does. The end game is that we can eventually do this and it's going to be really cool and it's going to be really exciting. And
it is a bit macabre to be like, hey, we want you to work on this monster parts system, and then it's like, okay, that was a test to work on this friendly pet system.
Well, that's what people
the
said.
Friendly one better.
Well, people were like, oh, we can slay the Pokemon for our monster parts, and we're like, nope, you can't, but they can gift you monster parts.
I'm only a few XP away from that next level. Okay, what is this? What's my what is he a moderate encounter?
Yes, exactly.
No, you're that adventurer from like the new Paizo like level up there or whatever it was, the board or level 20, the board game where it's like a murderous level 19 adventurers come into the dungeon to just try to get the last XP.
I did see that, and again, I haven't seen the details of it, so I'm not going to go into it. But that did not strike my fancy. But that is correct. But no, I think it's
you felt called out because it was you.
No, well, maybe 10, 15 years ago it might have been me.
Okay,
but,
fair enough.
But no, I mean, obviously, I think for me personally, I'd always wondered why Battlezoo as a name. So this makes a lot more sense.
And yes, the point of the stream is now that the news is broke, people have had time to digest it, see it, talk about it. And we have someone who knew nothing about it before the news broke. Derik learned of it when everyone else did. And Derik is the curmudgeon of the group. Look, I surrounded you with little Eldamon. Look, they're so cute. They're just saying hi to you, Derik. They're going, hi, can you befriend me? They want you to be your friend. They're saying hi to you.
They're all looking
Derik. Right at Derik.
Did you do that on purpose?
Yes, I did. Of course. Look at them. They're like, they want you to give them a treat.
I mean, I can give you my hot take reaction, obviously.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
So I think, I mean, obviously everybody knows that like the cutesy wootsy stuff isn't necessarily for me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be an interesting game mechanic. And I kind of have said, and this is going back against Paizo, and I would even belabor it against Roll for Combat, which is as a game master, as a player, I have enough monsters, I have enough ancestries, I have enough classes, and I think, especially in the first couple of years of an edition, I think it's important to get those stuff out there. But what I was really interested to see is, are we going to do something different and really, sort of push the envelope? And we saw, like Dark Archive has a little bit of that with the way that the psychic works. But I think this system that you have developed for the TTRPG, at least what I've heard from your PaizoCon release, both as it relates to both the trainer and to the avatar class and the way it interacts, the way it accumulates these different elemental powers, the way that there's these 10 or 20 different elemental or whatever we're calling them sources, outside of any narrative fluff, the mechanics of that, I think, are very compelling. And I think it points to the fact of how robust, the RFC product line is and what you could do with PF2. And I'll be interested to see what it can be done with 5e as well.
All right. That's a nice take, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this an agnostic standalone system that will work in pretty much any game. It'll work in, we're writing it specifically with Pathfinder and 5e in mind, but it can work in Starfinder. It can work in Legends of the Five Rings. It can work in anything. It'll work in any game, without much for the GM to do. And the other thing that we did, which is really hard, is that there is little to zero bandwidth on the GM's part to implement this system.
Unless they want to be in.
Right. Unless. And this is it's like this very deep.
Very important.
Oh, a super chat. We'll get to that in 1 second. It's a very deep, very complex, yet simple system that will work seamlessly in pretty much any TTRPG, and just has a lot. It has a lot. And yet it's, and this is why Mark was hired, and this is why Mark and I have been working on. It's a very, I think, complex system to get it to work. Put it this way. Anything that's really simple, whether it's a role-playing game or a video game or a website, if it's really simple in the front end, that means the back end is phenomenally complex.
Yeah. My advisor at MIT would say, just because it comes out simple doesn't mean the work to get it was trivial. That was like one of his catchphrases.
Yeah.
Simple does not equal trivial.
Yeah.
I want to very quickly say, before we go on to the super chat, which is sort of a different topic, that Stephen is right about seamless for multiple other systems. That doesn't mean you won't have to do any conversion work,
Of course.
but it means that a lot of the parts of it will still work. You would be like converting some of the Eldamon special abilities and like their powers into your new system, and then you could use like most of the rest of it.
Yeah. So the whole point, by the way, of this stream is to answer questions. So if you have questions or want to know more about Eldamon, and we'll talk about it in general, and how even the card game will work and the elements. And I have some pictures, and we'll go into them a little bit more later. But we have Janabi. So Monster Trainer games and tabletop RPGs are like peanut butter and tuna salad to me. I enjoy both, but I don't want them squished together. Fair enough. Keep in mind, though, that we've been talking a lot about the monster aspect, the monster training aspect, but there is the whole entire other elemental avatar aspect, which we've almost skipped over, but that's a big part of it too.
Want me to talk about it?
What I was gonna say, if we're being honest, that interests me far more.
Yeah, and I'm sure, right, exactly.
And not only as a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, I kickstarted day one the Magpie Games PBTA Avatar game. So that is really, really cool to me. But what I love is that there's this sort of, it's almost like there's two systems, right? There's this elemental power system, and then there's another layer on top of it, which was how do these classes interact with that? So Mark, I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Yeah, Mark can go into that detail.
You kind of figured it out a little bit by you correctly looked into everything and pulled out an abstraction that was very important. It's one that I did like a few years ago when Stephen first told me about the idea of doing this. I was like, Stephen, you're going to have to make hundreds of special abilities for these creatures. You want to have a second class that can use them, because a class is actually very hard, but it's much less hard than hundreds of abilities that nobody else uses. So at the point where you've done that much work, you might as well have it be used in more than one place. It's got a good rate of return. It can give you something really interesting. So then we didn't really do anything with that for a while. We didn't know when this book was gonna happen. Once I got hired on, though, we realized what we were gonna do. We had the elemental avatar, which I had told Stephen about all the way back then, and we've been talking about it a little bit. And so basically, if you're an Eldamon trainer, you have your Eldamon, and you're going to have them go out and be like, oh, Squirrel Ash, it's time for you to do some fire moves. But some people want to do some fire moves themselves, or maybe some music moves if they have the music element. Or these are called elements. Obviously, they're not like the elemental planes. If anyone's read the newsletter for today, with like, it had a little lore blurb from the Eld that's just like, oh, wizards.
Where's the salt and the ooze and the various other?
Well, it's not like D&D para elemental planes either, right?
Yes.
They're just like, wizards think elements are like the elements of creation were all the elemental planes, but really, everything is one, and it can be seen this way. So elemental avatar is the lore for it is that since Eldamon, they like to like meld into creatures, items, and places. That's part of how they're unobtrusive to the GM. You don't have to rewrite your adventures to fight Eldamon in order to, or even create non-combat peaceful encounters with them in order to have them work. And so what if you had an Eldamon that was just hanging out in you for a really long time, and you built up power with that? It's kind of like a Knight Radiant in Stormlight Archives, like some of maybe the Fury users in Codex Alera, maybe more like when Angs hang out with the Lion Turtle and learning more about the deeper aspects of bending. And so you are using it yourself, and that's going to give you some potential benefits, because what if your character has some like weird ancestry feat, or you took an archetype to get like a weird weapon or heavy armor, and you can mix all that in together with the special abilities. But on the other hand, you don't have the flexibility of just being like, oh, this is the Ice King of all ice, fire, Squirrel Ash, go do fire moves. So it's more of the like, I'm committed to being to this particular like skill set from at first one, and maybe eventually a few more of the Eldamon's elements. But by virtue of losing the flexibility, you gain like the interactivity of being able to use your character's other abilities at the same time.
Yeah, I actually said it to Mark originally, and when I was picturing this, it was like the Spren from Stormlight Archive. If you're not familiar with the Brandon Sanderson novels, I'm sure most people are, but he has this amazing world where everything in the world is represented by these sprites or spirits, almost called Spren. And what's fascinating is because of Spren, they were able to figure out medicine. For example, that when people would get disease or get a cut, then suddenly rot spren would appear, and there was actually these evil, rot spren which caused their arm to rot or the wound to fester.
Or they first thought they were evil and causing the rot, then they realized they were attracted to the rot.
Right, they're attracted to the rot.
That allowed them to figure out what actually caused the rot.
Right, and then they used medicine to actually get rid of the rot, and it's this whole fascinating aspect of how they are able to use the spren to learn. And I mean, I'm giving you the really high level detail of this, but well, everything in the world is Spren, everything. And it's really cool.
And I was going to say, and I think you mentioned this, you mentioned Legend of the Five Rings almost as a tongue-in-cheek saying, but I mean, in the world of Legend of the Five Rings, right, there is this idea of the Kami no Michi, right? This idea that there are these spirits, both named and unnamed, that inhabit every rock and tree and creature, right? And that some classes, like the Shugenja, right, can speak to those kami, and they can basically get them to do things for them. They can summon them, and that's very similar to a trainer aspect. Whereas there are ways, like for example, within you could prepare a weapon, you could prepare yourself, and you can invite a kami into you and sort of suffuse your spirit with its spirit. So I think that these tropes, I mean, we like to associate them with children's cartoon shows, whether it's the Avatar or the Trainer. But the fact is, it's like these are kind of touchstones of fantasy. And I think that yes, there's a branding here that is definitely aimed, I think, at these modern versions of them, which is, I think, is also very smart. I mean, whether or not you're interested in the mechanics or not, you can't deny that this is going to be highly attractive to a lot of people. But I don't want people to think that, it's Pokemon. Because that's very dismissive. One, because these tropes and traits have been around forever. I mean, if you want to really think about it, the summoner that we all think about, both Pathfinder 1 and going back to like Final Fantasy and even earlier, that's basically what this is, more or less. So that this concept has been around forever. I mean, I personally think this is a cooler concept of summoning than no offense, than the summoner from Pathfinder 2, because I'm not a big fan of that class.
I will not take offense by having written that one.
I completely.
But it is kind of more like a Final Fantasy X summoner, right?
Yeah.
If you watch the panel, the Eldamon Trainer is going to phase an Eldamon who are normally out of phase enough that they don't hurt other people. They just kind of fight with themselves into reality to fight, and you phase out. And that's like, in Final Fantasy X, Yuna would just be like, oh, come Valefor, and then like she would disappear, and Valefor would just like kind of come onto the stage, and you would start taking moves for Valefor.
Yeah, and when I came up with the idea, I came up with this idea right when Pokemon actually came out, but literally, like, because Pokemon I think is 25 years old, I came up with this 25 years ago, and my original idea was from Final Fantasy and JRPGs, because back then you would befriend monsters, or like was it Ogre Battle, or the Final Fantasy Tactics, right? I love those games,
and those.
Right, and those are
the mediator class.
Yes,
in Final Fantasy Tactics,
and even games like Warsong. Like, these are games where you would go and recruit monsters. There you go.
Yes.
And right, you would recruit monsters, and I loved that aspect.
Yeah.
And that's that's my inspiration. It actually isn't even Pokemon or Digimon or any of these others. And also a game called Monster Trainer, I think it was called. There was this game back, and I don't remember this, from PlayStation 1, where you would put in CDs of music in your PlayStation 1, and then depending on the CD, it would summon monsters that you can then capture. Oh, this was very popular, and it was amazing. So it was this game, and then what you would do is you would swap out the disc for music, and then read the music, and then depending on the music, it would make a monster. And there was like this super rare monster that you could only get by this like super rare obscure CD.
So before we go deeper into those other games,
super chats.
Really cool. There are 2 super chats. So Waters Leith said, the second they heard about it, 2 of my players said they're going to play a trainer as soon as they can. For our group, Eldamon is going to be the peanut butter to PF2's chocolate. So thank you.
Yes.
I think they're going to enjoy it. And hey, if you sign up
Monster Rancher,
for the Roll for Combat newsletter, which you can do on like eldamon.com and a variety of other places.
Yep.
Not only is there like, we had lore about the Eld today in the newsletter, but that's where you'll find out about getting in the playtest potentially.
Yeah, and so
it allow them to play it sooner.
Yeah, and so let me just, and I'll say this, as apparently as Pathfinder 2's resident Steven, I don't think you're muted.
I'm muted. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy here. I don't know if you can hear them, so just give me
that's okay.
Yep.
But I was gonna say, as Pathfinder 2 sort of apparently I'm Pathfinder 2's resident curmudgeon and hater, even though I'm not a hater. I will say this, like this is no more or less silly than the existence as it is of animal companions or familiars in Pathfinder 2 already. So like, I believe it or not, I actually, despite my knee-jerk reaction to most things, someone being an Eldamon trainer isn't something that I would necessarily be opposed to in one of my games, because it lives in the world. There's sort of a simulationist component to it. These aren't just things that are just tacked on. They have like a real, they have a real lived-in world presence. They have sound game mechanics, and they're going to allow you to play a certain type of game that you couldn't otherwise play. Again, I don't see this as any different this is my bear. It doesn't do anything unless I give it an action. And then sometimes it'll move once. Like, it's already a very, we already have mechanics like this in the game. So it's like, I don't think the idea of this trainer, someone was saying that they don't feel like it goes well with their game. I don't know. I actually think that in a world of summoners and wizards and witches and familiars and animal companions, I think this slots right in.
Yeah, and I said being an Eldamon is closer probably to druid shapeshifting. I mean, it's a little bit. It's a little bit. I think in my mind it is. I mean, Mark thinks it's more like summoning, but
I don't think that sending out an Eldamon to fight is that close to druid shapeshifting. But I did acknowledge in a panel before, and even to Steven, that like we could have a sidebar about people who want to refluff it as shapeshifting on like. Right. Communing with nature to learn the 160 forms of shapeshifting instead. Right. And it sort of works. There's a few
I meant more mechanically, actually, is what I meant. Is that you'll have different. Yeah. Well, it's going to be its own thing. In the end, it's actually it's not any of these. It's going to be its own thing.
It's sort of a little different. It's very similar, but like kind of Eldamon's conditions and stuff that happens to them won't necessarily apply to you right away. Whereas obviously, if you shapeshifted into an Eldamon that could only use those abilities at that point, you would beat all of the conditions right away.
By the way, the game was called Monster Rancher. That was the game I forgot.
Oh, I thought it was Monster Rancher.
Yeah, it was.
You know,
I made a
never
mistake.
Played it, so I was like, I'm not gonna.
That was
that.
I was wrong. I couldn't remember the name, but that game was really popular, and I love that game. And these are the type of games actually I was using as inspiration when I first came up with it, and then obviously once Mark came on board, it's hard to do this stuff in the vacuum, and once he came on board, the ideas and the methodology came fast and furious.
Right.
And then actually from a game point of view, I've been working very hard on all the pictures and images for the Eldamon themselves. The avatar aspect will come next. It's just a little bit harder to visualize, because it can look like, oh, that person's casting magic. It's a little harder to show. So that's why we're focusing more on the Eldamon part.
My initial instinct when I read about the avatar was, of course you probably do, but do you remember the magic of Incarnum supplement from 30.5?
Yes,
I do.
Yeah, I do.
That was sort of the mental imagery for whatever reason that I had.
I see what you mean.
Like this idea of these sort of almost ethereal, elemental kind of constructs that sort of surround and bind you. Anyway,
like the totemist.
Yeah, like
Incarnum. They were the one that was more connected to animals and the natural world.
That's right, exactly.
No, I can see that.
So
I could see people making like some small comparisons to the totemist, some small comparisons even to certain aspects of a few classes that have come out that have a sort of more rotational play style rather than repetitive play style. And there were some of those in 3.5, more so than Pathfinder, I think. So I think you'll find in any game design, there's always going to find DNA or analogs or even just like parallel design that you weren't thinking about it. In everything, I think you'll find a lot of things that are a little bit similar.
We're getting behind our super chats. Let's go see. Cheese of Ages. Two more.
How independent is the Eldamon mechanics? Cheese of Ages asked from the 2E system. 60% of my excitement for new products these days is seeing what I can reverse engineer to morph into more ideas. So I would say, Stephen, like you said before, it's easy to convert it into another system, which is good because we're going to convert it into 5E. But a lot of the just fundamental meta might not even need to be converted at all or very little when we convert it to 5e, like the just going around and, hey, you found an Eldamon and you are, because you found a flame tongue and there was a fire Eldamon hanging out in it. But obviously the special abilities that they use and like any of their like innate powers that are expressed in the game system are going to have to be, you're going to have to convert that.
Yeah, and I think and shout out to Galarian in Depth for that super chat there. Galarian in Depth is a big supporter of the Knights. What is interesting about that question from Cheese of Ages, and I would love to get some more detail onto this, Mark, before we get to your question, Gid, which is, we randomly, I don't know, I didn't have anything to talk about. So like randomly on a live stream, we started saying like, hey, what are some ways that we could like mechanicize boss fights in PF2, and add some of those concepts that we see from other games like 5th edition, legendary actions and stuff like that, layer actions and stuff, and start mechanicizing them. And then I like went offline and I came back and there was like over 3,000 messages on our Discord about it from people chatting about it. And one of the things that came up, this sort of contentious point, was, where do you draw the line between using existing mechanics so that it better interfaces with things that people have already known, and versus making whole new mechanics because the existing mechanics they don't exist to sort of help you tell the story of the mechanic or help you even express the mechanic in a meaningful way, and understand that is going to add another cog of complexity to what is essentially already a fairly complex game. And obviously you're the man, you're the master for that. And we ended up debating that for another 1,000 messages. And I would love to get your thoughts on it.
You could have multiple hour-long episodes on that. And it's something that with programming backgrounds, I'm sure everyone who is on this stream is familiar with those trade-offs in places that aren't designing games of like, hey, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I hope I can use this code or this, something from this library that already exists, but it's not exactly the thing that I need. Do I need to create my own code for it? So this is something that in problem solving and just in life, in a lot of creative jobs, you're going to wind up running into it. And in general, I think it's a push and pull. It's sort of like you try to not reinvent the wheel. You try to use what's there as a default until you kind of get pulled out of it by the weight of how much it's not doing what you needed, how much it doesn't fit the story that you need, the mechanics that you need. And when you reach the tipping point, then you're forced to design something new, but you try to think of a way to do that will mitigate those downsides you mentioned and make it so that like, it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to do something new with Eldamon, but even if we have all 20 of the types, the elements of Eldamon, we're going to try to make it parallel. So once you learn about Eldamon, like those other 19 are going to work in a way that you can understand.
Right. I mean, that certainly makes sense, right? In the sense that if you are going to invest in both, your word count and in your players' mental processing, your customers' mental processing, at least reuse those mechanics again and again, right? So you don't get to the trope of, oh, here's a whole new set of mechanics and they only apply to this one, class. I mean, to a certain extent, like there are elements of that in Pathfinder too, right? Like the press trait, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know that there's a lot of other classes that really use it other than the fighter.
So you figured out something, and actually some people at PaizoCon asked me, like just in a discussion, asked almost very similar question, but you figured out the answer as you were asking it, which is when it comes to creating like new traits or new things like that, what do you look out for? They were talking about the trait system in general and how it's powerful, but also potentially makes you look a lot of things up.
Yep.
And
especially nested traits.
Yes, especially nested traits. And so you correctly determined something that happens in good design, which is a lot of times, like, like for the APG or somewhere like that, we have really good freelancers. They have a lot of creative ideas. So they'd be like, oh yeah, I came up with a rogue press. And it would be like, it would make sense that the rogue does that after one of their other attacks. But it's like, but let's not, because it was like a low level one. It's like first level rogues, a new player to the game, even if they did decide to use the APG, right now they don't have to look up the press trait. And so you want to try to keep it limited, and you especially want to not use those traits on monsters if you can avoid it, because you usually can. By which I mean, like, a lot of freelancers, even like really good experienced ones, will throw like a flourish on a monster, and you look at it and it's like, this absolutely needs to be limited. They were right. Like, one action with a kind of flourishy thing is the correct thing to do. But the monster is a monster. It's not gonna like take flurry of blows as a feat.
Right.
It doesn't need to be locked out of other flourish actions. It just needs to not do that one more than once per round. So they could just put frequency once per round. Kind of take out the pointer, as we're calling the trait here.
Yes.
Put it directly from programming. Like,
nice.
Put it directly in.
Yes. Nice object-oriented programming.
So wait a sec. Before we get going, I wanted to point out, because boy, we jumped right into it. Do like and subscribe, and if you give us 50 likes, we're gonna make Derik tell us which were his favorite 3 cutest Pokemon. I mean, Eldamon ever. We'll make you do both. We'll ask you what are your favorite
Eldamon that we've shown. So 3
No. I'm going to show all forms, so we'll have 30 to choose from.
Okay.
Well, you'll have 30 to choose from, and Pokemon too. I want to know your cutest Pokemon too.
I don't actually know Pokemon.
Well, we're going to make you figure it out. We're going to pull it up, and you're going to do. Okay, we'll make him do the Eldamon then. We'll make him do the Eldamon.
Mark and I have been jiving on mechanics here. So let's get Galarian in Depth, who has a channel, by the way. You should check it out, Galarian in Depth, where he just covers lore. So if you're interested in
we messed up his whole channel.
If you're interested in learning about, he is our lore master of Galaria. So if you're interested in that, check out his channel. But he had a super chat where he was asking about Eldamon lore.
Right. How will they be incorporated in lore? Is there a plan of rifts? Golarion in depth mentions, is there something in Arcadia in the veins of creation? Are they located all over Golarion? So I've seen some people online say they want to put in Arcadia or Sarasan or something like that. I think it's up to you where you want to put them in Golarion. There's sort of this this default idea that there's like a really ancient sort of naturalist religion called the Eld, that in the world of Alucard is older than even the coming of the gods to the world. They weren't there yet. They were kind of tourists at first who showed up. And so the Eld just kind of believes that fundamentally during creation, there were a lot of things that are out there, some of which modern wizards call elements, but all of which to the Eld are elements. And that Eldamon are sort of part of that. They were part of creation in some way, maybe not like your particular Squirrel Ash, that might be a newer one, but they are something ancient and interconnected to the way that the world was made. Some people in chat mentioned that they were thinking of having like rituals or a toggle on off that allows some people to see them and others not, which given that they kind of can't interact with you directly other than maybe by building up energy in an area, like maybe increasing the crop harvests with, if you have wood Eldamon that like you, that kind of is something that can work. It's really however much or little that you want to have them be obvious and salient and how widespread you want them to be. You could have a sort of, like you mentioned, the Planar Rift event. You could have a special event that you decide to happen in your game. It's that like sort of changes where the out of phase Eldamon are with respect to the material plane. They're always coterminous, but maybe they were somewhere where they couldn't be seen, but those planes like got into more of a conjunction and now you can see them, which you couldn't before. And maybe that's a mystery that people are trying to solve. So there's a lot of ways that you can incorporate it. And I think that we might even want to include like a sidebar or something somewhere for like adding to your home world, your existing home world or another setting that's not Alucard. Like here are some ideas for putting them in there.
Yeah, but one of the things with the Eldamon is they've been around for as long as people can remember. So the exact origin of where and how they came from is actually unknown. But they've been around for, at least in the world of Alucard, pretty much since the beginning. But new ones do appear, which is interesting. And that's something that's also a bit of a mystery. So as the world and technology and magic expands and evolves, so do the Eldamon. So hence new elements, like music or metal wasn't necessarily around in the very beginning, but now that's something that is. So
yeah, no, I love that idea. Again, almost a more of a kind of a Taoist thing there from L5R, right? The idea that there's these fortunes that aren't just of the elements. There's the fortune of fire. There's a fortune of, but the spirit of sort of conscious beings generates things like the fortune of compassion, the fortune of prosperity. So like these kind of conceptual things. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, Mark knows I'm a big fan of the Five Rings, so
right,
that's another big inspiration. So
absolutely,
for this whole system.
Yes.
So Ashandari has a super chat as well.
Yes, they mentioned the class names seem problematic to avoid cartoon associations. Have you thought of other names like Cultivator for Elemental Avatar? I feel like
Elemental Avatar sounds like a badass.
Yeah,
I kind of like Elemental Avatar myself.
I don't want to make a value judgment on whether the name is good or bad, since I'm obviously biased.
Yeah,
but I will say that I definitely know the people I know who know what a cultivator is and know that Taoist connection to and how it connects to certain anime are like very, very inside baseball in that sort of like subgenre. And most people would be like, what the heck is this, just raising plants? So and being an elemental avatar, because you are an incarnation and like there's a like a creature within you, right? I feel like that is
It literally
use of the word,
it
that's
literally
a normal use of the word
Right.
avatar.
it literally is a
Right.
definition of what you are doing.
But maybe we can talk about that a little bit, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the other side of this coin, right? Which is if you want to avoid cartoon associations, maybe you don't. Right? I mean, realistically, this is a great way. This system is a great way. We haven't even talked about the card game, but this is a
didn't even get to that.
But if you've been to a game store in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, certainly the last 3 to 5, you know that it is a world dominated by Pokemon and Digimon, and especially Pokemon. It's always been huge. It's big. It feels like it's bigger now than ever. And you have a whole genre of kids who are playing with their parents. In my local game shop, every Thursday night, there's a Pokemon League, and it's all the parents and their kids. And this is this is a great way to get maybe your kids or your younger nephews and nieces interested, because they say, well, I love this stuff. And you're like, cool. Well, now you get to play this like you were Ash on the cartoon show, or like you were, whoever from your favorite video game. And it's a great stepping stone for more people to get into the TTRPG space by tapping into these intellectual properties like Avatar and like Pokemon that they are so in love with. And I think that not only is that obviously a good business decision, I think we can all agree, but it's also a great thing for for us, the consumer, as another opportunity, another option to allow people access to this hobby. So I don't think you want to avoid the cartoon association.
Yeah,
but we could put a sidebar in with like some people in different parts of the
that's
world.
how you handle it.
Eldamon trainers.
Yeah,
different things.
Yep.
Or call elemental avatars different things.
We
and
do
here
that.
are 10 names from different cultures, and we can ask like maybe freelancers or get people who know a lot of myths from a variety of cultures to give us some good names to put on that list. For example.
it's pretty common even with monster names. I've even had this happen. Like I submitted a monster name, and then like Ron would be like, "Oh, we want this monster name," and I'm like, "But I like mine," and he likes his, and then he'll put in the lore, he'll literally say, "The monster of this is also known as," and then the one I liked,
right.
and they just put in multiple names. It's very common.
But
and
you want to put the one that's a touchstone for more people, like Derik mentioned, as the official one.
It's
because
not going to change.
You're never going to be able to draw in the people who aren't playing and who haven't seen it yet.
Right.
Without the name that they're interested in, whereas once you have people who are into it, and they'll be the ones who look at that bigger list, like, ooh, yeah, the Taoist idea of cultivator is really similar to this, and that's actually an awesome name for it.
It's your game. You can change the names. Sure. I mean,
but people sometimes feel like they need a little permission.
Well, that's why we'll put in other names. I guarantee we'll do that.
But and also I think another thing too that we don't appreciate in TTRPGs. This is a rare instance. Mark Rosewater always talks about the importance, especially in the last 5 to 10 years of Magic the Gathering design, about this concept that they call it resonance, not like Pathfinder 2 playtest resonance, but this idea that a mechanic or a concept doesn't need to be explained because you already get it, right? Like there's so many things in tabletop role-playing games where it's like, this doesn't have an analog to the things that I'm doing in my everyday life. But it's like, if you go, oh, this class is kind of like a Pokemon trainer from your Pokemon game, they go, I get it. Like, I understand some of the concepts or precepts of this idea already without you having to explain anything to me. And I think that's a very powerful way as a touchstone to get people into the hobby, especially in Pathfinder 2, which does have added mechanical complexity to, say, a game like 5th edition. I mean, we all believe that it is worth the investment for the extra robustness and depth. But, I think anything that you could do to give people a stepping ladder into that world is that much better. Whereas something like, Barbarian, mechanically, we all get that. But like, if you've never played before, you're like, I don't know. What does that mean? Like someone who lives outside the Roman Empire? Like, what does that mean? Like, so I think that these concepts and these touchstones, I think, are just as important.
If we can bring people into TTRPGs in general, Pathfinder 2nd, like that will make me feel happy, because one of the few things, like I really, really love being at Roll for Combat. One of the few things I was sad to leave my friends who I worked with at Paizo. So if we can bring in more people and get like a whole different demographic to start playing PF2, that will make me extra happy too.
Yeah, so instead of looking at our ugly faces. We can look at some cute Eldamon at the same time. But yeah, that actually is the big aspect. Like, I mean, it's like the more I talk about it, it's like okay, we wanted to do 500 things with this Battlezoo Eldamon, and it's actually, I think we hit them. I think we're hitting all of them, and that's a big part of it. Is that a big market right now, and the reason why Pokemon and Digimon is so popular is that, you know, the people who play, like, D&D is turning 50, and we are now up to second or third generation people who have been playing TTRPGs, and they want to get their kids involved. And how do you do that? Like, how do you introduce your kids to D&D or, you know, Pathfinder? In fact, the what is it, the most recent one, the Witchlight one, I'm looking for it, which is the one that's called blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, that like carnival one.
Yeah, the carnival one.
That one looks so cool.
That was
Wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, the which one is it?
You can tell. We can tell we're big 5th edition players.
No, I can't remember the
No,
exact, because
it
they
is.
always
It's like
make
the
their
Witchlight.
names. The names of their adventures are so freaking long.
It's the Witchlight, the Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
Wild Beyond the Witchlight. They always
That's
make their
it.
names so freaking long. Wild Beyond the Witchlight was their, I think, best-selling adventure ever, and it just came out. And that just tells you, you know, I won't get into it. I won't get into the business aspect. I mean, I've been studying this very, very, very closely and doing a lot of market research over the last few years. This is one of the number one segments, is trying to get your family members and kids and trying to teach the next generation
Absolutely.
how to get into the game. And no one has really done it like this. And I hate to say it, but you're going to see this more and more. You're going to see it in D&D. I guarantee it. You're going to see it more in the next few years. I don't know if you're going to see it so much in Pathfinder directly. I think indirectly they're very much doing it. But we are doing it. We're hitting everyone. Like, you know, there's a reason. It's like, oh, the cute aspect. Well, you know what? If you can play and get your kids involved and play this game with you, you'll put up with the cute aspect, even if it's not your jam, because
And
playing with your kids is
are
way
not the
more
only
important.
People who like cute things.
And that's
I'll put
it's
that out there.
100% true. But
Like,
I'm just
Linda
saying,
likes cute things.
yes. But I was even just seeing people.
I'm the only one who doesn't like cute things.
Well, but you know, the funny thing is, because I've seen all these, I've been watching a lot of, for whatever reason, I'm just watching reviews of older movies, and they were going on about like how the original movies were, you know, they're looking at Star Wars, how they were, quote, kids movies, but yet then the new trilogy, how they went too kidsy. And then you have movies like Solo that were like, it's not really a kids movie. You know, it's like it went the other way. And they're trying to figure out this balance of like, how do you keep it for everyone? You know, and that's what Disney is actually having a tough time figuring out. And Baby Yoda, you know, Grogu, that's a pretty good example of they hit it. They hit the nail on the head. That thing, everyone loves that thing.
People went crazy for that thing.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And it's cute.
I don't have Disney Plus, but even I knew what that is because of what you just mentioned.
Right.
And again, I not everything is for everyone, but I also understand that, like, you know, fundamentally, there's a certain point where, I mean, I have dogs. I think they're cute, right? Like, pets are supposed to be cute. Like, that is what they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, there's a certain element here where you go, is it cute just to be cute, or is it cute because it's what it is? And you know, I you've shown the art for the battle forms as well, and so obviously they have a meaner side to them and things like that.
So I wanted to go over some of this while we have these up. I think we answered all the super chats, right? We got all of them through.
Yes.
Yeah, we finally made it through.
So this is the pet form, and this is the form that, and this is, someone said, oh, did you show all 10? Because we didn't have the beetle. I couldn't fit the beetle in there, but we have the ice otter, we have the earth snake,
This time we have the beetle.
water. Oh, I know, now we do. I was saying last time I did it.
Which one do we not have this time?
No, we have them all. 1, 2,
you don't
3,
have the
4,
squirrel
5,
up on
6,
here.
7. Oh my God, I'm
Squirrelash.
missing squirrel. Oh,
You don't have Squirrelash.
how did I miss the squirrel?
The Squirrelash ran off and got distracted.
How can I
and was trying to
always
collect
miss
something.
one?
Look
Damn
at
it.
this. even I caught that, and see that just
I
shows
knew that it was missing one,
and
because I
that
thought there was-
shows you the power. That shows you the power of the IP already. That I can identify which one is missing.
Not only that, I
Who's
could
that
show the
missing
power of the.
Eldamon?
I could show the power of the
Squirrel-ass.
IP. Is that in one day of PaizoCon, everyone knew what it was and the name
Right.
immediately. It was kind of amazing how powerful it was. But yeah,
The name, I think the name is a 10 out of 10. I mean, you stick the Mon suffix on there, people get
except
it.
I got the wrong logo up there. Whoops.
The Eldamon sounds like, it's like a really, really powerful sort of elemental elder sort of type of thing there, and I think that's really interesting as well. Again, I haven't seen the mechanics of this yet. I'm not privy to the file. So I'll be, eagerly awaiting.
They don't actually exist as much as you might think. We've done all of the sort of like the outlining of figuring out how it's going to work, but we don't have like 400 special abilities like
No.
We needed to make sure we had enough to present it to all of you, but to be honest, like we are in earnest when we say that the stretch goals will really actually stretch it and add elements, and we're going to see what we're making before we make all of the
we have the
details of
first 10 worked out, but this way, this is a
it. We
huge
have
system.
ideas for so these first 10, which also evolve into 10 more, so that's 20 of the 160. We have ideas that will fill us up to at least half, but that is not enough for like the full specific.
Are we going to get an Eldamon wrap is the real question that needs to be answered.
A wrap?
The
squirrel ash loaded thing.
Mewtwo tentacruel aerodactyl. The
Pokemon
you
just
wrap.
did it. You're gonna do it.
Bizarre.
You're doing it for us. I can get one. Actually, not that hard.
Just say the names of all of them.
Yeah,
but you gotta have the wrap.
I'll get it. Yeah, these are the battle forms, and then the big difference is like anyone can get the pet form, and anyone can then evolve them to the battle form when they battle.
They don't evolve to the battle form.
They don't evolve. They change to the battle form. Yeah. And then, by the way, when they're in pet form, they're small, and then when they're in battle form, they're medium.
And
in terms of
somebody
size.
who's not one of the trainers, they sort of take a battle form, but it's still it's still like sort of phased out. They only fight each other unless you're a trainer. Then you can turn them into battle form and bring them fully into phase.
And some of the newer ones, we have the fox, and the fox is actually, I kind of like the fox. It's pretty cool.
The fox that's in the cauldron there, that's the battle form. It's the fox of the force element. The scarab there is the life element.
Yep.
Yeah. The battle form of the scarab wins, by the way, in terms of the coolest. I think for me, it's either that or the lightning turtle.
Oh, really? Yeah, those are new. We just got those.
Those two are. I love the color theme. I love the lightning bolt motif on the turtle's head, and how his head kind of went almost like kind of a stegosaurus looking. And very cool.
Okay. Well, and then we'll go to evolved. Oh boy. Then they get pretty creepy in the evolved form, because people are like, "Oh, they're so cute," and then you start getting.
They can still always go back to the pet form.
Oh yeah,
Once
you can change you can change the forms.
The evolved form replaces the battle form as like the way that it fights when you manifest it. Not manifest it, when you bring it into phase. Yeah. But they're always around.
Yeah, and the evolved form.
They still go back to the pet form.
The evolved form only the trainers can do. And this is when they get large, and they also battle like this, and then they get pretty serious at this level. Then you got the 3-headed snake, you got the octopus,
turtle's like a kaiju.
Yeah, the kaiju turtle. You got an octopus.
Not actually kaiju size, but
no. But it looks like a baby.
It's
10 feet tall.
Like that's okay. The kaiju from Monsters of Myth aren't kaiju size either.
Yeah,
so
it's
okay.
true. It's a 10-foot tall turtle
because they're a hazard of dealing with some kind.
You can't point to the creature because it doesn't have a physical template. So technically, the kaiju have no size because they're naked. But no, I think,
or they have any size.
Yeah, they don't have any size. No, I think the art is 10 out of 10. I really like the look of it. It looks. Like here, does it look like Larry Elmore painted it? No, but it has that appeal to that sort of card game Pokemon, Digimon, Monster Rancher aesthetic, while still maintaining a cool look to it. And it doesn't look, overly kitschy. And, some of the original Pokemon were really stupid, These things look like they are, badasses. And I appreciate that. So,
and that's how they go. They go from like, oh, so cute to, ooh, they're going to battle. You're like, oh my God, this thing is going to, look, I love the Death Dog because it goes from a dog to basically a wolf. And it's a little small here. And I can't believe I forgot the squirrel because the squirrel went full raptor on them because the thing is it's a mouth of razor sharp teeth and pointed claws. And you're like, damn, that thing will tear you to pieces. And that's
dolphin
the point.
had like a bunch of octopus tentacles.
Yeah, it's like the dolphin can now go in the water, run after you, and then grab you with tentacles. The ice otter has like razor sharp ice, coming out of it. It can hit you in so many different ways. We have the bat. There's just lots of. They get pretty evolved. They do a lot.
So while we're sitting here at the evolved form, let me ask you a question, Mark. You mentioned this insofar as what I heard from the card game, but are these Eldamon going to be distinct? Not just ice otter does ice damage, water dolphin thing does water bludgeoning
water
damage.
Dolphin octopus thing. Yes.
Is there a stylistic difference? Is there a mechanical difference as well?
So yes, they will have their own, they'll have a few distinctive things that are just for Blizzotter, right? And then they will also pick special abilities from the cold element. So yes, it will have both. And while we're talking about the art, the Eldamon so far, although probably not all of them like he did for the dragons, are Firat Solhan, same artist who drew the dragons and has done a lot of art for Paizo. I know he did the borders in Guns and Gears, for example, and some other things. And Eleanor Farron, who is a senior developer at Paizo, who's also I think is very, very good at placing together art orders and references. I gave her a little bit and was like, well, how about some kind of a fire squirrel? And then she came up with the starting order to send Firat. So this is, and then Stephen worked that out. So they were the triumvirate of the of making this art so great.
Yeah, he's doing the Farron. He's doing the initial art, but there's so many. We're gonna have to start. He can't do every 240 is even too much for one person. So we will have them as we continue down the pipe, have other people contribute to them.
So Nevik, the white one on the left side is an air bat. Its wings are actually made of air.
And it kind of looks like it's a little bit like a fox bat, if you can.
Yeah,
but
it's like the flying fox.
Yeah, it's a little bit of flying fox. So, and we purposely do that. We kind of we kind of mix it up so it's not just bat. It's like bat, sort of bat, air fox. We try to mix them. So
bat cat. So we've been talking about this, from a perspective of the Eldamon, but there's a card game.
No,
which are also Eldamon. But yeah, there's a card game, and the card game is one of multiple ways. We actually didn't mention this on the panel, but we did in the NoNat video. One of multiple ways that you'll be able to do something that's a little simpler than full on PF2, grid-based combat. If you want to just fight between your Eldamon quickly while somebody is buying a hat or selecting their spells at the beginning of the day or something that's taking time. So we will have an in-game system that is more abstracted. We haven't completely determined what that is, but it might be more like a dueling subsystem from Game Mastery Guide mixed in with hey, you're throwing your abilities at each other. Let's not worry about kiting and who moved 30 feet and who moved 35. And then the card game is going to be a game that is sort of a separate game of that simplified system of we're battling between Eldamon. And it is going to be pretty simple to play, so simple to play. You can just have a randomized like AI, though it's not a computer. It's just like you shuffling a deck of cards, play against you. It won't play super well, but then also have a lot of more sort of psychological depth in it rather than depth of like complex character stuff.
So in the span of card games, both the ones that are truly collectible like Magic and Pokemon,
right,
to sort of board card games, right, like Dominion or Smash Up or things of that nature,
right,
where or Hearthstone, right, which is,
this is kind of like a living card game, like that Lord of the Rings one, where
sure
you get everything that you need. The Dominion also gives you everything you need, but so you get everything you need when you buy the pack that has the things that you need. It's not randomized, but there can be more later on that expand the game because it's very open and expansible, but we're never going to make you do like a gotcha where you're like, oh no, I want this one legendary rare thing. You just you buy it and you get the cards,
right, which is awesome. I mean, that's the LCG model. But in terms of the game's complexity as a card game, like where would you rate it at?
I would say it's pretty simple as a card game, but it's got more of like a understanding your opponent and what you think they're going to do is where the complexity comes in.
I'm trying to make it. I mean, we're still working on it. And hey,
yes,
we ask you, Derik, maybe to help out with that since you have experience. And
I for those of you who don't know, I did play Magic the Gathering very, very competitively, almost professionally for a number of years, but I do like card games.
So we'll definitely have you
right now. Like you don't like draw randomly from a big deck.
No,
it is mimicking what's going on in the actual like in the RPG.
Yeah.
So you have a set of your special abilities, your moves that you can use, and you have the cards for them, and you discard them as you're using them, which is also similar to how the Eldamon themselves actually fight. And so all of them will be the same names. Obviously, they will be like reimagined slightly for the card game, which doesn't use the same rules as PS2, of course. But,
sure.
The way it works is in the prototype right now is you and your opponent select a move secretly face down. You both reveal it. The moves have speeds to determine which one happens first, which it can be very important because certain moves will be like, well, this one doesn't have a great speed, but it also cancels anything that goes after it. So if you are convinced they're going to play a powerful, very slow move, you're going to hit them with this. It does a small amount of damage and then cancels their big thing, which still gets discarded and is sort of like a big coup for you. Whereas if they play a fast move that comes in before you, then you still do a little damage, but you're worse off.
Yeah, it's probably closer to Dungeon Twister or Gloomhaven, if that makes sense.
The timing component there sounded very Gloomhaven-esque.
Yeah, it's closer to that. I mean, I'm hoping to make it simple but complex in the way poker is, and that poker has a lot of bluffing and a lot of, it's actually a very simple game, but yet very deep. And
or like the game that I spent most of my time at university playing, euchre, like spades or hearts, right, where it's it's a trick-taking game. It's very simple, but there's sort of this idea of like, well, knowing that I know that you know that I know.
Exactly, that's what we're trying to get at.
Yes, that's where we're getting at. And some of the abilities will just be like, oh, this has a speed on it, it says 3 fire damage. There are things that are more complex than that. There are like right now in the prototype, there's status ailments, and like each of the elements does something a little different. Like cold can slow down the speeds of the opponent's cards so that you will potentially be going sooner than them in a way that they're not expecting. Fire can do more damage by discarding more of its cards, and so it has to like take a turn off and refresh sooner than everyone else, but maybe your opponent's already dead by then.
But again, keep in mind this is things like that. This is beyond early stages.
It's super prototype.
Sure. Yeah, so this is something I want to
do anything. Like
I want answers today. You can't just release
I'll give you
give me a spoiler and then not tell me everything.
I'll give you the game. after this. So you can we can start working. No, we actually
shoot me the file.
Well, I will. We're gonna actually start. I want to start testing it soon, and get together a team. Yes, a lot of people in your Ohio area, which I know are really good testers. I have some people from the Magic Pro community that I know very well.
Right. This might not mean as much to other people, but I know some of the names of people that you have looking over this, and they are the right names to have looking at any sort of card game,
exactly,
or basically anything with mechanics in a game form. And they are the right people, since Steven knows everybody.
It just Scarabard in chat says Foundry is working on getting cards in Foundry, so we would be able to incorporate it.
We'll definitely want to. And someone's actually asking if this is like all this stuff we're talking about is going to be in the same Kickstarter. The answer is yes. And
we didn't even talk about monsters.
We didn't even talk about the Battlezoo. And then we're about Overreach. Let me tell you something. I actually want to be serious about this. This is why this is our second Kickstarter, because the first one we learned a lot, and I definitely learned what we should and shouldn't do. And that was really just, when I started that Kickstarter, it was me and a few freelancers, and that was it. And we got a lot done with just that team. Now I have full-time integrators for Foundry, the two Ians. Foundry, I'm very good, close with just everyone on the Foundry team. Obviously, everyone at Paizo is 100% supportive. We have Mark on full-time. We have a very good 5e team. I have a cadre of artists and designers at my disposal. Mark has 3-page documentation of freelancers who want to work with us that are all A+, developers and designers. We're at a whole other level. I know I have the printing, I already had the printing, but we had the printing plants ready. I have a distribution, a warehouse, we have everything ready. And more importantly, we've been working on this for months. So this will go a lot faster and a lot smoother. And we're not doing an adventure path. There's the number one. That's the number one thing that messed us up, is the adventure path. If it wasn't for the adventure path, we've been long done. This Kick's first one.
Way before.
Oh yeah, it would have been way.
So the adventure path just took a lot more time and resources than you.
God. It's not just that any adventure path did, but specifically what happened with this one. So I was going to back up Steven by saying that in addition to everything he said, one of the things once I came on was trying to check with Steven to make sure some aspects of the project were things that didn't need to go past my desk because they were things that were not hardcore game design, or things that were other aspects of the project. So I think it may be bigger in the sense of the partners and other people Steven has found since then, but it is fewer pages that have to go past my desk than that. Nothing can blow up as much as that adventure path did in terms of its scope.
No, definitely not.
Not only was it an adventure path, it got way longer than
too big.
It was originally. It split into another book.
Oh, I love it. I love the adventure path.
It's amazing.
I love it, but I'm not doing that again.
It now means that this next one will be fewer pages of content that have to be done due to the fact that it does not have an adventure path that kind of exploded in
And quite frankly, if you think about it, we had to come up with several new systems. We had Monster Parts, which was a brand new system.
Right.
I had to learn how to and come up with the whole design. Think about how much we actually had to do. I had to come up with the whole. I'm going to switch back to our other view. I had to come up with the whole design idea and concept and theory and templates for the books, which takes a long time. I mean, that took me a month, 2 months to figure out exactly what fonts I'm going to use and layout and structure. That's a lot. I had to work with the printers. Oh, I do these in hours. Mark knows how quickly I lay these things out. I lay them out insanely fast. Yeah, we have this all templated.
I basically got to see the development of that live, basically, more or less, because I think we went live 2 or 3 times that week. Together. And I was like, wait, what? I remember them talking about this on Tuesday, and now it's available on Thursday.
Yeah, we're much faster now. And there was a lot of ramping up. There's way less ramping up. We came up with the new Monster Part system. Mark had to write the whole brand new Dragon Ancestry Guide, and it's not out yet, but there's a lot there's dozens and dozens of new systems and ancestries and backgrounds and god systems and magic items in Jeweled Indigo Isle. This one, we have updated monster parts, monsters, which we know how to do. I already have the layout done, so that's Battlezoo Bestiary, Strange and Unusual. We have the Year of Monsters ancestries, and those are only going to be PDF, and that's throughout all of 2023. So we're gonna prepare that well ahead of time, and we'll have those ready to go, and those will just drop. So it's not even that we're coming out with one book. We'll be just coming out with them throughout the year. And then the only quote new system is Battlezoo Eldamon, which is a big system, but we've been working on it and thinking about it for a long time. You can see we have a lot of the art and the concepts down. And once we, get going, this is pretty much what we'll be doing most of our time.
Yeah.
So,
there's sort of two axes of difficulty for a Kickstarter: hard versus long. Right. And so in the first Kickstarter, Steven talked about this, doing your very first layout. That's hard. The monster part system, that was something that was hard. The bestiary, that was long. Right. So dragons was both hard and long because there were a lot of them, and you had to come up with certain new ideas and mechanics. The AP was very, very long. So Eldamon does give us some things that are definitely hard. But Steven has me on full time, and I can handle the stuff that's hard.
Yeah, Mark and I.
It doesn't have the stuff that's long as much is going to help us out. Yeah, there was a super chat from
Cheese of Ages. By the way, sorry, Cheese, we keep stealing your ideas. So maybe you need to.
I did see that on the Reddit.
That was very funny. You're like, you keep taking our ideas.
It's funny because Cheese was like, then listed a bunch of other ideas that haven't been.
I know. I hate to tell you, but we're doing a whole new book on Greek myths and mythology. Sorry, Cheese.
There's no way you are.
But you never know what our other 8 Year of Monsters will be. There could
unfortunately, there's a Year of Monsters and there is overlap. So Cheese of Ages, I'm warning you right now. You might be disappointed, or maybe you are psychic and you somehow can read our minds because you seem to figure out what we're doing ahead of time.
That's what the super chats are for. They're actually bugging your computer. So the super chat says there was mention of Eldamon kind of hanging out in items in addition to creatures. Are there rules for enchanting weapons and stuff with Eldamon to get effects? So most of the time when they hang out, they don't have a huge effect on the thing that they're hanging out in, with the elemental avatar being an exception. However, you have correctly predicted, you did it again, Cheese of Ages, that I was planning on having a little sidebar or mention in there that sometimes if Eldamon really like a weapon and want to hang out it a lot, like they do with a creature that becomes an elemental avatar, it might become a relic with a related relic theme, right? Because there's fire relics and water relics, and they scale and they level up. It could wind up becoming a relic. And hey, an Eldamon that kind of fused with the item they were in could be your intelligent weapon character from the Year of Monsters or something like that. That could be your concept.
And even just from, it was funny because we were saying, and I want to do a different stream on that, but the Year of Monsters is that from an RPG GM NPC point of view, you can have all these fun things like Eldamon just hanging out, or there's a big thing, Battlezoo, because there's arenas in every city. In fact, if you look at the Alucard setting and you see our cities, they all have arenas, and that's why? It's because they fight. This is their form of entertainment. So that's a big aspect of the game. So you can have this in the background. You can have Eldamon, training facilities and stuff like that.
And you could put some of the VIP spectators really close to the fight, which you wouldn't normally do in a normal arena because they could get hurt because the Eldamons, the attacks are just not capable. They always do those when they're phased out.
Are there any corrupted Eldamon?
Not yet.
So
Not yet.
We're looking at different lore elements, and there's definitely an idea that really, really ancient specific Eldamon might have reached the point where they can phase themselves in, and maybe you've pissed them off because
or
you've been polluting the water, and then this one comes out and it's really angry.
or Eldamon that are so ancient and incomprehensible. They are unto almost like gods. And these Eldamon are these sort of extra spatial, extra temporal entities that have these crazy names like Cthulhu Lash and Yogg Saron Otter.
Well, I mean, Derik, if you really want the space element, that's in the expansion. So you're gonna have to make sure we get to the stretch goals.
And then we can get to chaos. We can have chaos and law in there. Yeah. Well, keep in mind, so there are rarer Eldamon that you get at higher levels, and we have been pretty much showing the basics. These are all low level. They will get more esoteric and weirder as you get to the higher level ones.
And
we haven't gotten to those yet.
Aren't necessarily, some of them have level requirements, but they're not necessarily like you must be this level to find them. But it may be more like, unless they're so rare, unless you're like fighting a high level creature or finding a high level item, you're unlikely to, like, they're a really low chance to find any location.
I like that idea, because even if they're not mechanically quote unquote busted, I like the idea that something like a space or a time Eldamon is conceptually higher level, rarer than maybe something that's like level 1, like a
like
fire squirrel.
Spirit Eldamon in particular are a little harder to reach out to in general. Air Eldamon tend to be a little harder to catch on to, because they're usually up really high above you. So it all depends on your situation. So we will have some elements of that. There's another super chat from Gina B. So what about just a single adventure, not a full AP? Well, there's not any adventure on this Kickstarter.
No, there's not any adventure. I mean,
it doesn't mean never, ever, ever, but not on this Kickstarter.
And more importantly, if I can get someone who would sort of do it for us, like more of a, instead of me managing it, more of a not a third party, but almost like someone who we partner with to help write it.
Like a licensed partner?
Yeah, almost like a licensed partner, my own licensed partnership. We're trying to concentrate. I mean, we're still a pretty small team. And until, if we get bigger, I can do more. But even if we get bigger, now we have a couple of product lines going. Like, people ask us, like, okay, you're going to be doing Eldamon forever? And that's it? And the answer is no, but it would, hopefully become a major product line that we will be doing Eldamon. Like the card game, this is season 1, and it only covers 10 elements. There's still another, hopefully 10 more elements to cover after that. And that could be season 2. And so you can mix and match them.
Make more.
Yeah. And obviously if this is popular, we'll do more. But I'm never going to stop, at least theoretically, the RPG Superstar or the Battlezoo Best. I know you say you have enough monsters, Derik, but I beg to differ, because I do know the marketing research shows the number 2 best-selling book is always monsters. By the way,
this is why I'm horrible at everything that I'm doing.
That's why you're bad at business.
This is why I'm bad at business. And anybody who watches my channel or is a member of our Patreon knows that I routinely, by the way, every month I take all of my financials that I have for my channel, I post them to my patron, and I show them how I've wasted money. I don't like the 2 things that everyone seems to go love are monsters and ancestries or races, and those are the 2 things I don't care about at all.
Why? Actually, why? I'm actually curious why you don't really like them, or why doesn't it excite you? Even from a point of view as a GM, you can use it in your games even if you don't allow it.
I think it's because most of the time, I find that ancestries, as particular ancestries or races, are sort of whitewashed humanoids anyways, in the sense that, like,
you mentioned that before.
Yeah, like I just don't feel like they feel alien and exotic enough, and a lot of times people choose them, and then because of certain balancing reasons, I find that a lot of times they aren't as mechanically distinct as they used to be. And back in the day when things were really busted and broken, like an elf and a dwarf did feel pretty different, because an elf had a laundry list of abilities that, made it arguably very, very powerful. But now the races and the ancestries tend to
I mean, I'd be curious to see your review of the dungeon of the dragon book, because dragons they're different. I guarantee you that. Like, I know everyone who plays them, they say, and I've seen it because in my own games, it's like they're different. They are different.
And that remains to be seen. We have to review that one officially. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean,
soon.
We're still on the hook for a Book of the Dead review.
Yeah,
so
I'd say the dragons, definitely the dungeon is really different. And you haven't seen You haven't seen the Kokori yet, but they are really different because
Well, and then they reach a point of, okay, are these so different that like, are we playing an adventure? Are we playing a fantasy adventure game now? And sometimes I look at some of these races and ancestries and I think, I mean, this is interesting and I could totally see how this creature would exist. But like, you know, do I think, when I think fantasy adventure game, do I think this type of creature? But that's also changing as well. I don't think that necessarily every adventure, every group, every session is sort of in that fantasy adventure genre as much anymore. And I'm just an old bitter man whose time is leaving behind.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know what though? But people go through phases because, you know, Grimdark was all the rage for a long time.
I never even got into Grimdark, and I was a Warhammer
I didn't
fan.
Get into Grimdark
well, not Grimdark,
either.
but you know, okay, let me rephrase. More like
a phase, and a lot
high
of people got
fantasy,
into
dark fantasy.
Sure,
is sort of like was pretty big,
I
even
like
with D&D. I do too, but right now, and I think it mostly has to do with what's going on in the world. It's like cute escapist fantasy is really hot right now.
Like I'll give you a great example. I get that it won an Emmy, but like Mjorkbjorg or whatever.
Oh, I love Mjorkbjorg.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
I like the concept. I think it's over designed, but I think
it was over designed, and I think the aesthetic style was too much. Like, look at us. How much more black can we be?
Well,
none more black. It goes to 11.
you and I, as someone who taught graphic design at Carnegie Mellon, NYU, and the New School for many, many years, I can tell you that they are what we would call that is the design is an A+ and usability is a C-. It's very hard to use, and that actually is a problem. And you have to balance it. You can't. I've seen that many, many, many times, and people confuse really cool layout and design with usability, and the two are not the same.
Sure. Case in point, 4th edition D&D. It's beautiful. It's it reads like a technical manual, but people were bored with it because it read like a technical manual. And so there is a sweet spot for me personally. I wish they made 2 versions of every role-playing game book, right? Like the one that you bring on vacation, or that you curl up in your, you know, on the couch by the fire and you flip through it and your eyes full of wonder. And then like the spiral-bound, laminated, spill-proof version that you keep at your table when you're actually playing, right?
I wonder if in the future one of those will be like the physical book and one of them will be an e-product that's not quite a PDF.
That's not a bad idea, Mark.
I hate to say, but the PDFs are taking over.
Speaking of the future, I want to circle back just for a moment to when Steven was talking about is the only thing we're going to keep doing Eldamon. Just so everyone knows, like the monster part crafting Eldamon, Steven has a third big idea that isn't either of those. That initially, when he had described it to me, it was going to be the monster part crafting, then this other one
that
I didn't even
get to the next one.
and then Eldamon would have been 2024. And so that's still out there and will probably happen at some point. It is extremely cool. And I won't say anything else about it.
That one not even going to hit, but there's when Mark first approached me, I had 3 really, really big ideas, and now first was monster parts, now it's Eldamon, and there's one more. And that one's also really big.
Second.
Yeah, that originally was going to be second, but we pushed it off because it's too much.
Time, it sort of changed the plans, and I like the order that it is now. I think it's going to work out really well.
It's going to work out really well.
People knowing about Eldamon while they're learning about Alucard and having Eldamon appear in the adventure path wouldn't have happened with the original order. For example.
And I know someone said they're waiting for the Indigo Isles PDF very soon. It's ready to go. The first one is pretty much done, and I'm actually going to start doing layout. The layout's done.
We just have a few Blendo maps on the later ones because he's also doing D&D maps.
Oh, I've said it before. So Adventure 1 completely done and laid out, and there's been feedback. I just have to put in what I do is I lay out the text, and then I go back and I put in graphics and map. Second, that's how I do it. So that's all done. Now I'm going to go put in the graphics and map. That only takes a few days. Then there's like fine tuning. So the first adventure will be done pretty soon. Second adventure, Mark and I actually have to go through it and do one more pass, and then that will probably have to go through another proof, and then I could do the second one, and then the third one. is pretty
We're
much
doing pretty well.
pretty well. I got to go through it
You
myself.
still have to lay it out, but
I still have
since
to
you didn't
do
lay it
layouts.
out, it made it easier to put in the playtester feedback.
Yes, we actually,
except for one small part of it
Right.
that you did lay out.
I actually went. That one's also waiting because I need the maps. So
Yes.
there's not a huge rush to get the layout done, because even if I finish the layout, I can't finish it because Blando is doing the maps. And Jared Blando, by the way, it just came out, the Dragonlance books he's doing the maps for. And
Yeah, I saw that.
and he's doing all of our maps
He's
too.
one of the most famous cartographers. Like when I was growing up and playing, like campaign cartography was not a thing I followed a lot, but I still knew, like, Lazaretti and Blando were the names.
Yeah,
that
and
I
we're
knew
getting
of.
we are getting all the A+ people on all of our products, which is why we brought Derik on board to help out. You laugh, but you know what? You're critical, which you need. You actually want
Sure.
critical. Magic. I'm assuming. I haven't seen your record or anything. I want to look up your pro account. I
Well,
want to see.
they deleted the DCI, so
Oh, really? What was your DCI?
it was like 8 digits, 7 digits.
Oh, that's pathetic. Do you want to see my DCI? You want to see? Look at this. Are you ready? Oh, look at that.
Wow, is that a 4-digit DCI? 5-digit?
4-digit laminated DCI
Oh,
yeah.
from
Yes.
Wizards of the Coast. And it was still, what was it, Centaur Games or whatever they were.
Wow.
Look at that. It was laminated. Duelist convention. Look at it.
I see it.
4-digit.
Go.
574.
The Duelist Convection International.
Convection. Yes. Look at this. This is
Speaking
freaking
of Derik doing a
laminated.
thing,
That's how old
guys,
that is.
We got 50 likes, and people in
Yeah.
the chat want him to do an Elder Wrap.
Elder Wrap.
No, we agree. I would tell you
We
which ones
changed it. Elder
ones are
Wrap.
the
Let's
cute-
hear
which
it.
ones are the
But here's the
cutest.
thing, you told us which ones you liked while we were showing them.
No, but
before
let's
this
hear it
thing.
again. So everyone who missed it, what is the third? Not what you liked. What is the
Okay,
cutest?
well, yeah. So
and
those
you
are
have
the ones I
dogs. What
like.
type of dogs do you have?
The mutts.
Oh, okay.
They're like beagle, corgi, pit mixes.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a weird mix.
It is a weird mix. Okay, so based just on the pet form.
Okay, we'll go
Just
to the
based
pet
on the
form.
pet
Yeah,
form.
there's the pet forms.
Okay. Based on the pet forms, my favorite from a cute perspective is the Frost Otter or Blizz Otter?
Blizz
Yeah,
Otter. I
yeah.
love the Blizz Otter.
That is definitely the cutest
Okay.
from that perspective. The second is probably the we don't see him here, but I think the squirrel is the
Squirrel
Oh yeah, the squirrel.
Squirrelash is
Yeah,
the second
Squirrel
cutest.
Ash, yeah.
And then the third cutest would be the beetle, which also then in his battle and evolved form is my favorite. So
I know people love that. It's so funny that I just got that right before PaizoCon, so
beetle.
I got that very late.
Life Scarab.
like the
yeah,
like
the life
the,
scarab.
the otter, he's very cute as a pet. In his battle form, he falls off a little bit, but the beetle and the turtle kick way up. I like the battle form of the dolphin a lot more as well. And then in the final evolved form, I mean, the beetle and the turtle are on a different level. I mean, those things are just awesome. So the beetle reminds me of a Nubarok from Warcraft 3, but
Look at Ryan.
very, very cool stuff. So big fans. So
And then the beetle is the life element, so
Right.
like it can do like healing type life things too, and it's like it also looks like it can beat you up.
yeah, I love the idea of the scarab and the life gain, right? It's like scarab of life protection is a classic in D&D. So there's it may not make sense to some people, but if you're like actually super deep into it, you kind of, and even for the ancient Egyptians, the idea that this scarab is actually makes perfect sense as a life element. The beetle, I love it. I think it's perfect. So a big fan of that. But the
We
cutest
try to use worldwide mythology for some of them.
so cutest number one is definitely though the Blizz Otter. That thing
Blizz
is
Otter.
Yeah.
that thing's adorable though.
Oh, look at him. He's so
But
cute.
the Glaciator evolved form, that one fell off for you.
Yeah, it's fine. It just it's not doing anything. Like the beetle, literally. I mean, that is an evolution, right? The Blizz Otter just gets Glaciator is just scary looking. That's a cute thing. I'd rub his tummy.
Well, yeah, some of them we did. Well, it was also we're still figuring it out whether we want them to significantly evolve, because the grass snake or the earth snake You know, they
You
changed
mean, the wood one, Lotus Snake.
Lotus Snake.
When
Yeah.
it evolves into Lotus Serpent, it gets 3 heads.
Right. So like that, you know, some of them actually evolve and change. You know, some of them just become more pointy, like the Blizzotter. Some of them evolve and change, like the Lotus Snake, and some of them just completely, you know, just metamorphosize, like the beetle.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, more like a grub that started. Then
it starts kind of like he kind of starts like a little grub.
Right.
It's just like a little beetle thing.
It is a nice thing. But I mean, that being said, will my Discord create a Pokemon version of the Eldamon theme song? I'm sure we probably will.
I hope so. That'd be awesome.
You know,
there we go.
So there you go. Now we know your spirit animal.
Yes. Right.
It's a scarab or an otter, depending.
Well, I grew up playing hockey. I like the cold. It might just have to be Blizzotter. So. Plus, I've always liked cold as
really?
An
You play
elemental
hockey?
type.
Oh, what was your position? I played hockey too.
Defense.
So was I.
Strong, slow, and I had a terrible shot. But
I
could skate backwards better than I could skate.
I think
forward,
you and I would be the same because I was. It's not that I had a terrible shot, but I was a lot better at decking people and keeping them on the boards than I was at shooting.
I was violent. I wasn't finesse. Right. So I especially at like that young age, and even in high school where not everybody was as willing to get physical. I had no problem.
I had no problem too.
Yeah. But I never had a good shot. Part of the problem was no one ever actually really did a good job of explaining to me the mechanics of a slap shot. And it wasn't until many, many years later that I watched a YouTube video of someone slap shotting like in slow motion and actually kind of clicked like, oh, like that is how you get the power from a slap shot. I never actually made the connection. But anyways.
And yeah,
So,
by the way,
Derik, though, do you tell good stories and ghost stories? Because Blizzotter kind of likes to hear stories and things like that. So you could hang out with Blizzotter. I'm a
natural storyteller.
Yeah, look, there's and actually, I do have the little squirrels right next to you. Look at them; they're both right next to you.
The squirrels on the page when we're all here. Squirrel Ash is a collector and wants to just like collect everything. So I think a lot of trainers are going to fit in well with Squirrel Ash because they want to collect all of the Eldamon, and Squirrel Ash wants to collect lots of shiny objects and things.
Yep.
If you collect all of the Eldamon, do you get some sort of sweet mechanical benefit?
Maybe.
Well, we haven't decided yet.
But got that far. Probably should.
You might get acknowledged by everyone.
No. Even I'm gonna just veto that one because it's sort of like World of Warcraft. Whenever you do the sets, that was my favorite thing. You would get like 3 of the sets or 4 or 5 pieces of the set, and then you get like a special or Diablo. They all do that. Set bonuses.
Set bonuses are great. I think.
I definitely want to do set bonuses because this way you have like 3. If you get like
Steven, we'll talk about the mechanics of it because I feel that it's an issue if you give a benefit for having them all in a game where we might make more of them later, and then it. Well,
what I would probably do is you do it from here. You can hear mechanics live. I would do it that it is non-beneficial, is that it's more of a
like a status symbol?
Yeah, it's more of a status symbol.
No, in my game, it would give you some sort of sick Eldamon. You'd be like the Eldamon god, and then
Eldamon legend.
Yeah, Eldamon. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I'll have to figure that out.
Some people said they wanted to be an Eldamon master. I was like, but in Pathfinder Second Edition, legendary is better than master.
You got to have that. You got to have that goal, right? Got to befriend them all, Eldamon, right? Like that's got to be your.
There we go.
What was that? Say that again. I missed that.
That's got to be your tagline.
You're pretty good at singing. Look at that.
It's
friend of all.
It's my natural storytelling. It's just and it's the Roadcaster Pro. That's right. You know it's your destiny. That's what I'm saying. This is gonna happen whether we want it to or not.
I hope so.
But I'm always a big fan of. I love rewarding people mechanically, and even if it breaks the game. I mean, this is my dark GM secret is that I love it when players become so super powerful at the end of the game and break it That's like one of the things. It's like even in Pathfinder 2, I'm like, oh, cool, the game doesn't break. So that means I know the baseline so that I can break the game.
You know what? I'm up to high level play. It's not that it doesn't. They get pretty powerful. I mean, we're only.
They do, but it's
trust
not
me.
like it's not
breaking, but they definitely get strong.
Very different that you have to actually kind of toss out what's in the adventure and write your own things every time.
Yeah, but like because consider something, right? Like we obviously you all know that the math of Pathfinder 2 is fairly consistent throughout the course of the game.
Really?
But right, so we established this before, right? Like +1 at level 2 is just as valuable as +1 at level 18, right? It's the same relative increase. The monster's defenses, keep in lockstep with you. But then consider that at level 1, you have access to a spell like True Strike, and at level 7, you have access, or spell level 7, you have access to something like True Target, right? It's very different.
True Target is huge,
right? So, or cast heightened 6 slow sometime and see what that does to your combat, right? Like it's a big difference. So anyways, you definitely are more powerful, even if the math doesn't suggest that you are.
No, you totally are, because Derik, you're right. In a lot of other games, there was like the intentional, maybe your math is getting a little bit above par, and PF2 still has that somewhat. There was the unintentional, actually your math is way above par and everything is dead. And then there was also the intentional, but you also have more narratively powerful or just more disruptive effects at a higher level, regardless of the math. And PF2 keeps the intentionally, you're getting a little bit more above par and the more disruptive effects. So you still do get stronger, but it takes away but actually the math didn't really work the way we thought, and we have 30 higher on this modifier than the game benchmarks, and it's on a D20, so we always hit.
So are you going to let players in your game, Derik, have their Elda decks out and actually collect?
So I will
it doesn't
say
require anything on your part. They could do it all themselves.
Right. So that was the one thing that you said that I was a little like, raising my eyebrow. And so you're like, oh, while someone else is shopping, you can have your players play a quick game or whatever like that. That made my inner GM knee twitch a little bit, because I was like, I don't want more disruptive elements at my table. So that is something that I think I would be really interested in looking, because one of the taglines that you've sold me is this requires no extra work from your GM, no more than just adding in, let's say, oh, it's a new class from the APG. There you go. We'll see, because
and you don't have to let them do a fight during the person buying hats or selecting spells.
But think about
just like if they were sitting there bored.
Yeah.
They could do a fight.
I guess
they don't need that time.
I guess, and I'm being a little bit, facetious here, because my thing was I would never have someone buying a hat anyways, because I would never let, as I am a brutal editor at my game table, right? Like a brutal dictator. Sure. I'm like, and scene, and we're moving on. Like I do not let anything breathe, right? I'm like, I want the tension. Is that resolved? Then we spin on off to that.
And you don't need that. But Steven let them buy a hat for like 2 hours, he said.
Boom. Well, mine's also a show, unlike yours, Derik. Oh,
I'll take that. I will take. And we've had conversations about this.
Yeah, we
Steven,
actually have. Like it was very. Those are the ones that people remember that are entertaining. But to be fair, I have had. I mean, how many times when you were playing Magic did people then do side games of Pokemon or other games if in the Magic scene? Quite a bit.
I'm sure you're very aware of this,
yes.
Right? Peter Atkinson came to Richard Garfield in the early 90s and said, hey, what we would love is a game that people can play at conventions while they're waiting for their next game of Dungeons and Dragons to start. Something quick and portable that they could play in 30 minutes while they're between slots.
Yes.
And that's literally the genesis of Magic the Gathering and what we know as a CCG.
And there's a lot of games. I mean, I've been to some, you and I have been to Pro Tours. It's like, there's a lot of downtime, and you know what? There is downtime in D&D games and in Pathfinder games. I've played many a game where people are doing something or whatever, something's going on, and I have a friend who literally goes on the couch and watches Star Trek. Nowadays you probably your phone. So I'd rather, put it this way, you will have that. Okay. Your game is different. My game's different. You and I have been doing this a long time. I'm also a taskmaster. I also like move people along. You and I actually have a very, very, very similar philosophy. You see Joel the Indigo Isle, that thing pushes you constantly. I'm always like ticking clock, ticking clock. You and I agree 100% on this, is that you must have constant pressure on them. Otherwise, it's just, there's reasons. Anyhow,
there's still chances to relax in Indigo Isles.
Indigo Isles on purpose.
Scripted.
It's scripted. That's true. And it's also, it's nothing will happen, and they have to then decide, are you done resting? Okay, now let's start. And then the adventure starts up. So once it starts, once you get on that roller coaster, it doesn't stop. And you got to keep going until it's over. So, man, I lost my train of thought there. Oh, what I was saying is that downtime, you will have these games with downtime, and I would rather have them spending downtime in our game doing something than on their phone or watching TV.
I will definitely agree to that. I mean, and during the pandemic, when Foundry first came out, we were early adopters of this. This was before we even had the channel, and we were running Abomination Vaults on there. And which reminds me, I want to buy the new released version and see how it compares to the original version. But we were running Abomination Vaults Remastered.
Oh, yeah,
how about this, Derik? If you tell me your Paizo.com email address, I'll gift you with the 5e version of Abomination Vaults.
5e?
No, I'm just kidding.
Why would you do that to me? No, but I would actually, because I like Abomination Vault so much, I think it's a cool adventure, and I like the style and play of it. I've recently kind of gone through a period where I've said, maybe I need to give 5th edition another chance, and it'd be interesting to run it using an adventure that I've already run using a different system that I believe in, and see how it compares and contrasts. But we were playing on Foundry, and we had never really played on virtual tabletops before. We'd done a little bit of Roll20, and I remember that like one of our players, I won't name names, but like he was like building a puzzle while we were playing the game, and it became like a joke, like, oh, okay, how's the puzzle going? Like I was a little frustrated with how distracted people were, and reading Reddit.
I thought you run a tight ship there, Derik.
I mean, I do. I'm saying I MF some people out. If you want to be honest, I basically said, hey, listen, I'm not being paid to do this. You're welcome to leave at any time. And if you have a problem with that, then please don't come to my game next time.
Why would people read Reddit in the middle of something else? Oh, did you see that giant maggot on Reddit? It's at the top.
But so I guess to that end, like, yes, I mean, I understand that distraction is a problem, and there are certain elements of these games which require longer periods between players' turns sometimes, and that means that you want to have something to do. But I would be cautious. That's the one element before I start telling my players they can battle each other during someone else's turn, because before you know it, someone's taking extra long because they're hasted and they have to cast an AoE spell, and people start Eldamon battling on the other side of your table.
Yeah, we don't want people to do that. It's more of like there's some kind of a downtime thing. Like it takes a certain amount of time to prepare your spells. It just does. Even if the GM is very good at pushing people.
Listen,
if you don't give the prepared spellcasters 20 minutes to get their spells in line, and they can't use their like default spells because of a weird day.
I have a level 15 cleric with the free archetype druid up to expert spellcasting.
Does
and
it
breath.
Take you 20 minutes to prepare spells when you can't do your default spell?
I'll say this: being a prepared spellcaster is the hardest it's ever been, even in Pathfinder 2. And I'll tell you why. Because it was always hard, even in like Pathfinder 1. But you picked your spell, and okay, number one, you picked your spell and you thought, okay, is it level 1, 2, 3, 4? It doesn't even matter, right? The DC is so low, it's almost irrelevant. That's not the case in Pathfinder 1 or Pathfinder 2. That level 1 fear spell is just as effective against a level 17 foe as it was against a level 1 foe. So that's number one problem. Not problem, but it takes a long time. You actually have to think about it. Number two problem, everything heightens. And so you're like, it's not just like, oh, I'll take fear. It's like, are you going to take fear, or are you going to take fear heightened to 3? Are you going to take haste? Are you going to take haste heightened to 7? Are you going to take slow? And so you're making so many more decisions, even within that concept. I think it does take longer than it probably has ever taken me. And this is as someone and I was used to playing wizards with 30 int and rings of wizardry 3 and 4, and you would have like over 100 spell slots. You don't even have that many spell slots in Pathfinder 2 comparatively. You only have like 50 probably max, but it takes me a lot longer just because there's so many more decisions to make.
There's a lot of choices. You get a lot of flexibility. It's something interesting, like a conversation I had with some of the other designers where they're like, at one point, I think maybe it was the playtest, it was like, we don't have a whole lot of spells on such and such a list at this level, or especially wizards. The class wizard is just like such a greedy jerk, and it's just like, well, but there's not that many spells of this school at this level. It's like, yeah, but there's like 15 spells that heighten at this level and are actually a pretty good heighten to use at that level.
Exactly.
But then that's sort of what I said. But then like some of the other designers pointed out, which was very correct when it actually hit fans and people, is that like, yes, but like, I mean, they didn't say Derik Melinda, but they're like, only people who really understand what's going on are going to immediately think those spells are part of what I'm considering. A lot of people will just see that there aren't that many new ones there and consider it to be sparse.
Yeah. Well, and that's not even without talking about what I call like the silent heightens, right? Like
yes,
like
anything with counteract,
anything with counteract or incapacitation, right? Like they don't list anything for heighten, but obviously the spell is designed. It's one of my bugaboos about Pathfinder 2, Mark. The game doesn't actually like explain this to you. It like expects you to kind of figure it out. But like, you look at a spell and you go, oh, it's got incapacitation, and it doesn't say heighten on it. So I go, oh, okay, I guess I can't use blindness anymore because I'm higher level. And it's like, well, no, you could heighten it. And it's like, oh, yeah, I guess I could, even though it doesn't say I could heighten it.
It does say you can heighten any spell in the heighten rules.
Yes, but like, for example, if you go to Archives of Nethys and type and search heightenable, that spell will not show up.
Well, that's Archives of Nethys' issue.
Well, how many people use Archives of Nethys, Stephen?
A lot. And I guess
I know they should fix it. Did you put in a bug report?
Didn't create
it's one of the reasons why I rail against digital tool sets.
No, you just have to go to one that will respond to your bug reports.
I think Archives of Nethys is a really good digital tool set.
That's good.
Maybe one case where the choice that they made to show that it has a heightened entry made it harder for people to learn.
Or do what I do is you use PF2Easy and Archive and compare and contrast.
One for some and one for the
others. No,
others.
that way if you get two different results, because it's always you got to have two sources.
I'm not looking it up in two digital locations, Stephen.
I actually do, believe it or not.
I believe that you do, but you are clearly a sadist and a freak, so I am going to leave it at that.
Wow. It's harsh words.
Those are
damn.
He's just like I don't trust the one official digital source.
I don't. I actually don't.
I didn't think it was going to make it this long into the episode before shots were fired, but here we go.
But anyways, but no. So like again, it is a very complex thing. And I don't remember why we were talking about spell prep, but
because we were talking about
we
downtime.
Talking about the fact that it's
downtime.
Almost a requirement, unless you.
Right.
You have your default list and you're like, it's fine for tomorrow.
But I would say going full circle, I think that anyone who's playing a prepared spellcaster should either A, have sort of some default template of these are the spells I take, or two, do that before the session. And that's definitely, in my opinion, a benefit to your
obviously
your
you curate your sessions carefully enough that an adventuring day never ends in the middle of them. But I know a lot of people who don't. I don't always. Sometimes I run long sessions and it goes through to another day. And that is tricky. And it does create some downtime. And it sounds like that you do a lot of really refined management for your group that is very skilled and very good, but that not everyone does, that make it so that like the ability to have a little Eldamon fight going on in the background is not very useful to you because of that.
Right. And again, I get that that's not literally like a component of the system. It's just sort of like a feature.
Like it's kind of a side effect that Steven discovered.
A side effect. That's a great way to describe it.
He asked me for like this kind of idea. When I showed him like how quick it was, he was like, "Oh, this is something that could happen during these kind of things."
Right. Yeah. And again, that I agree. I was just when I heard that, I was like, I bristled a little bit because I was like,
no idea what he's talking about.
I don't want any more. I don't want any more distractions. But yeah. Overall, I think it's cool. It's exciting. It'll be interesting to see how the 5e integration works with this. I mean, obviously, we have some ideas of Pathfinder 2, but 5e, I will admit, is a bit of a mystery to me. I'm not sure how you design for 5e. Do you just guess and throw things at a wall.
Well, the way we design for 5e is that we design for PF2, and that gives us, because constraints sometimes actually can help inspire creativity or help you get something going. And so we can design it for PF2, and then once we know what it is for PF2, the conversion team converts it, and they have an existing product that exists in another system, chooses their inspiration, so that makes it a little easier.
Well, Battlezoo Bestiary was a success. As you famously point out, we gave the 5e conversion an even better grade than the PF2 conversion, just because we thought it was a more challenging task. And so again, I'm interested in systems. I'm interested in subsystems. Mark, I know you mentioned in the chat, right? Like, we love the GMG, the victory point systems, everything Knights of Last Call related tends to default to clocks from Blaze in the Dark and stuff. So I love systems like I like the resolve and the stamina system. I like the we are using automatic bonus progression in our current AP that is every Tuesday at Knights of Last Call on your YouTube channel. And we're currently running through a whole series of tests on our Discord server, really pushing the boundaries of proficiency without level. And people are running basically tests on that. Just to sort of experiment with it and see what works and if anything.
All my little variant children from the guide.
Yeah, and I love the Game Mastery Guide for that reason. I love Game Mastery Guide more than I love APG or any of the books that have come out since that, Secrets of Magic or Guns and Gears or whatever, because I'm more interested in different ways to play the game from a systems perspective than I am playing the game in the same way, but just with like a different perspective, which is like what a class would be.
So let me ask you this about that on the Game Mastery Guide, Derik.
Yeah,
I've sometimes had this thought, which is like, the Advanced Player's Guide, the core rulebook for Pathfinder 2. I think they're good. Like, this is a good Advanced Player's Guide. But so was the one in Pathfinder First Edition. And like in a lot of cases, like Secrets of Magic is really cool, and I really like also having the lore and the theory of it in there. And Ultimate Magic was also good at Pathfinder First Edition. They were different, but with Game Mastery Guide, I feel that like maybe the Pathfinder Second Edition Game Mastery Guide is really up there in terms of Game Mastery Guides, that period, in a way that maybe would you agree with that?
I would. I mean,
like in terms of DMGs and Game Mastery Guides for multiple systems.
If I was telling someone after they bought the core rulebook, I would say I would almost tell them to buy the GMG before they even bought a bestiary, because I was like, this teaches you how to play the game. It actually shows you, I mean, the creature mechanics, all of the different ways that the game builds together are all in the GMG, and I do think that I think it does a very good job of showing you the nuts and bolts of the system, and I think that's important.
But if you like, it's interesting. I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't use the monster part system, because that is a really cool mechanic, like mechanically how we built it or how Mark built it. It's really cool.
That was a flavor thing.
It's not. You're 100%
for
wrong.
Me,
okay.
For me, it was like, I'm not as into the chopping up, like in WoW and stuff like that. I hated, like, get me 10 moose antlers.
I love that stuff.
It's like I'm an adventurer, for God's sake.
I love
like
Monster
I should be pulling back gems and bags of coins, not chunks of dragon heart.
Yeah.
That is why, which we've discussed for our Quest for the Frozen Flame adventure path, which is obviously a very different set of circumstances where gold and silver are almost meaningless to these people. We are going to essentially use that system, maybe tweaked or modified a little bit, because it's much more reasonable that these characters would be using these, megafauna, hides as, okay, it's like, oh, it's not just leather armor. Now it's, saber-toothed tiger.
Oh, wait, so you are using the monster part system?
Yes.
But you're adjusting it.
We are adjusting it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good. I'm actually glad, even if you use it adjusted, because... Yeah, because I said basically,
even.
Secretly, now don't tell anyone this, but it's really just lots of more runes. It's really just lots of runes. That's all it is, and with flavor.
I mean, it's got it's got a few other things to it, but it's made to be adjusted. That's why there's so many sidebars to help you adjust
Exactly. But the point is that it just gives you a lot more options mechanically. And the way we built it, it's very flexible that you can use it however you want.
And so, like, for example, like one of the characters is War Priest. He has a wooden shield because I banned anything metal from anybody having that. And but the idea would be like, oh, okay, like if they go and they kill like I can't remember what they call it, but basically the gigantic prehistoric armadillo, right, like a glyptogon or something like that.
Glyptodon,
the glyptodon, very good. And like that might be the equivalent of a sturdy shield, right? Like a glyptodon scale, and he makes a glyptogon scale shield with like glyptogon scales over it. It's like, okay, that's very cool. That's very thematic, and it fits the theme and tone of these people. The other thing that I want to do is to use sort of boons, but not make them divine, but almost make them as part of the animist religion of the realm of Mammoth Lords. So like the idea almost kind of Eldamon-esque, where like the spirits of this place, the spirits of your ancestors, the elemental spirits that inhabit this land, recognizing that the heroes are doing good, will sort of infuse them with sort of these non-material bonuses. And that way we can get away from magical items while still allowing Pathfinder 2 to function.
I will say I'm very curious when your PCs start to manufacture their pieces.
Yeah, well, there was already people upset because they fought the moose session 1.
I know. Why didn't they get the moose parts?
Everyone's like, where's the moose parts?
You and I have talked about this. I was on a bus, like a tour bus, okay, in Alaska. And you know how high a tour bus is, you know, where you're sitting? And I looked to the
luggage rack underneath.
Yeah, the big one, like those big, massive tour buses.
Yeah.
And I looked to the right of me, and there was a moose, and its eye level was the same as mine. And I'm like, damn, these things are gargantuan. They are so big.
I spent 2018 hiking the Appalachian Trail, and so I spent about almost a month hiking the wilderness of Maine. And during my hike, I encountered rattlesnakes and porcupines and black bears, and none of them ever really scared me. But the most frightened I ever was is I woke up one morning and I was in Maine, near a kind of a boggy area, and I would say probably still a good 100 feet away was a bull moose.
Oh yeah,
and obviously they're hostile, but they are territorial. And I remember just being like, that thing is the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I have been to Alaska. I did the Alaskan Highway, drove up it, and I too have seen a lot. I've seen bears, I've seen all that stuff. I have seen buffalo. Buffalo are also very impressive, by the way. They're more gentle, but they're gargantuan. But the moose was there was something about it. It was just so big. It's, you know why it is? Because it's a little lanky. Like a lot of these bears are big and just
big,
bulky.
huge legs.
And then you have same thing with buffalo. They're just big. But then you have these moose, and they're like lanky and long and tall, and it's just like, wow, this thing looks like it could just do damage. And their heads are so big. But yeah, moose are no big. But anyhow, what I was saying is that wait until they start actually making their own items, because in the games I've found that they go crazy, because then now they start naming everything, and then they feel real personal connection to their gear. It becomes it becomes a game within the game. Yeah, and it's really nice.
I think one of the characters took improvise. It's one of the skill feats that lets you like craft without needing actual items or something like that. Like you don't need anything.
Improvise tools. You don't need any tools to do.
There you go.
Your thing.
Exactly. So, basically be able to kind of make it. So there is definitely an idea. And of course they all get the skill feat, all of the animal, for access to that. And so I think we're going to definitely lean into that. And I think it'll be cool. And like you said, I think it adds a personal touch to it when you associate it with a certain monster and certain type. So it was encouraging initially Bob to go with the Vestige Hunter.
I know, I'm kind of upset he didn't.
And the reason they were concerned was they're like, well, you don't have any control over what you fight.
That's part of that's part of why it's so cool.
Right.
Well, I like randomness. That's why I
do
put
too.
It in.
And he was coerced by his own biases and stereotypes from years of playing video games, along with people from my Patreon who convinced him basically that like, why would you give up power? You should be able to make choices and have all the things that you want. And I agree with you 100%. I love. You know what?
Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Your GM, like Derek, he could have had you look at it and be like, I've looked at this, and some of these abilities come up.
let me tell you.
Or you could look
that-
at it and be like,
yeah.
no monster ever has these
And,
common
yeah,
monsters.
and
that's
You'll
exactly right,
never
Mark.
fight one with a
Well,
butt.
if you watch my session 0, I sat down with the group and I told
I
them, look,
saw
you guys are
that.
making characters. I go, you guys are going to be fighting a lot of this, a lot of that. As we get into the second and third adventure, there's going to be undead. We're going to get to some dragon things. We're going to get some giant things. I like letting my players know, hey, this is what you can reasonably expect, because there are things in this game, feats and stuff that you take that, quite frankly, could either come up a lot or come up never. And I hate for players to be in that situation. So I have no problem. And to your point, Mark, I would have happily been able to explain to them what there is and what there wasn't in the game. And I also don't think it's wrong that a vestige hunter goes, hey, can we take a sidetrack? I'd really like to go fight blah so that I could go.
I need to fight an octopus so I can
get some tentacles. But you know what? He should have done it, because I've had this. My group, it's funny because I've been playing with the same group for like 25, 30 years. And I've seen them grow as players to the point that, they have gotten to the point where they plan their characters,
right?
But they really can't. And like 2 examples, in our actual place, is like our Dead Sons adventure. It's a bit of a spoiler, but it's been out for like 5 years now. So, is that Bob Marquis was playing an agent, and in like the very first book, he dies. He basically died. Kind of. I had him kind of brought back, and he was playing like a sort of ghoul character, but he didn't really tell anyone. He and I knew what he was playing, because in that game you could have undead and play undead. So he was basically playing an undead, but he was using magic and technology to make him look like he was normal, but he wasn't really. And because of that, he had to completely change his build, his level, every level he leveled up. And this is nothing he planned. And it was a much, much better character, much more interesting, and a lot more fun for him.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I applaud the player for going with it. And I love that you did it. In our first Rise of Rumors campaign, very famously, Bob's character was Azius the Alchemist. And, we got in there and it became obvious that he wanted to smash things. And we had this past that he alluded to. And we said, he used to be a barbarian, but then he, accidentally caused the deaths of some people, and he put away the rage, and he embraced drinking, which led him to alchemy. But now he's visited the Cathedral of Wrath, and that ancient spirit of rage has been reawakened, and we just completely rebuilt his character right in the middle of the AP. And alchemist became a free archetype, and barbarian became the primary class. And I wasn't even using free archetype until that moment, but then I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to give it to everybody else to keep it fair. But we literally,
I like the randomness. I like having that, and I like it that your characters are organic, because in our Agents of Edgewatch, same thing, is that Chris Beamer, who was famous for, in my games, he builds his characters to level 20. Like, he knows exactly what he's going to take.
And I know that this is sacrosanct, especially in the Pathfinder 2 community. I hate that. I hate the idea of my build.
What? You can do that all you want, but then all of a sudden I showed him Jalmari Heavenseeker, and because he's a monk, and then you get this free style, and he's like, whoa. And then he saw how good it was, and he completely had to redo everything. And ever since then, he's just been changing his build, and he's as much a thief as he is a monk. And I mean, he didn't go anywhere even close to what he was originally going to build. And that's just because I kept introducing new things that he just never saw, or even he didn't even know existed, because it gets introduced in the adventure. So he couldn't even
mechanics going right.
Yeah, and that's him not even planning.
That makes me feel so happy, because that's what the idea, the platonic ideal of mechanics that are in adventures. Because in adventure paths in Pathfinder First Edition, sometimes it would just be like, here's a back matter article. It has 20 magic items. They're not in the adventure, but they're kind of related to the theme of one of the things in the adventure. And they're very different levels, some of which are too high or low level to put in the adventure. But whereas in second edition, the fact that you unlock them and find them in the adventures, allowing people to do something like what Derik was saying of I thought I might know where my character was going, but this thing that I found that I didn't even know it existed is cool, and I'm going to change myself and become part of the story. Because I'm also someone who's built a lot of character builds, but I also feel like Derik, that I want my character to be organic and want to react to the story. And so I have this push-pull, and that's why I really love the way they do it in TF2 adventures where it gives me a good excuse to not go with the long-term build and to react to the story.
Yeah, and also too, even if you're not using free archetype, the archetype system is perfect for this, and it's one of the reasons why I love when they include archetypes. I'd love to see more higher level archetypes, actually, that where the dedication feat is higher level, because the idea is it's like, yeah, my character started off and they were a fighter, and they were just a fighter, and then at level 8 I'm still going to get to be a fighter. I'm still going to get legendary weapon proficiency at 13. I'm still going to get all the cool fighter stuff. But at level 8 or so, or 10, something happened in the campaign, and now I have this archetype, and now I have this whole different set of abilities, especially if it kind of fulfills the promise of prestige classes that failed, and like lets you sort of indulge in this hopefully mechanically interesting, but ultimately narrative rich mechanic, while at the same time not making you an ineffectual character.
That actually that brings interesting, because so Mark knows this about me. I love random mechanics. That's why we have a blue mage. That's why we have the vestige hunter. That's why we have old Woody. It's like I like this. There's I won't get into it. There's a lot of reasons why. It's part of slot.
One thing we share.
Yeah, slot machine mechanics, which is a whole other thing. That's how WoW and all MMOs are built off of. That's how Pokemon is built off
almost
of.
almost every campaign that I have ever run, and almost every campaign that my friend has run that I usually play in, typically has some form of mechanic that we basically dub the Fountain, and it is essentially a random character changer, ability granter. It completely can just take your character 180 and just take you in a different road.
Well, I like it that when it's so random that not even the GM knows, like no one knows.
Yeah, that 100%. Yeah. Like, you know, someone died once in our Pathfinder 1 game, and we made a ruling that they couldn't be resurrected, and they're like, "Can I be reincarnated?" We're like, "Sure." And so we went to Pathfinder 1, and we were just devastated that there was no random table. So instead, we went back to our second edition manual, and we pulled our second edition AD&D manual for the random creature that you get reincarnated as, because we're like, yeah, and then he came back as a centaur, and it was awesome.
Actually, I had that in my 3.5 campaign, and we had this there was a woman, and she was like a half elf, and she died, and everyone was like, "Oh, good," and we didn't have enough money to raise her, so they like reincarnate, and they're all excited, and they rolled the random table, and she came up exactly the same.
But at least you took the chance.
I know. It was the funny, but like, hey, she's the same.
And I think
like Deck of Many Things, Rod of Wonder. Rod of Wonder is so little it doesn't really change your Deck of Many Things is kind of a fountain effect, as you just.
Oh yeah, but listen, Lord Ebix Firesoul was not a lord until he drew the tower from the Deck of Many Things.
Hold on, the tower makes you lose all your stuff.
Wait, well, what's the one that gives you a keep? Oh, is it the
keep?
Okay, I'm sorry.
But I will say though, you know, Eldamon and Elemental Avatar, it's going to be a little bit of that, because you can't totally control what you're going to get.
Right.
I mean, you have Avatar is a little different.
Avatar's a little bit. The Eldamon definitely.
You've had a long-term association with this one, but the trainer is very, very much that. It's got what Stephen Lennox said it.
And that's another part of it. Like, if you want to play a character that even you don't know what's going to happen, and it's organic, you can be an Eldamon trainer.
And I get that there is a certain percentage of the player base that may be uncomfortable with that. Just like there is a certain percentage of the player base that may be uncomfortable with the idea that even I, the GM, do not know how this game or this story is going to unravel. And I encourage you, I implore you to take your hands off the wheel. You know, let the dice flow, let the game go where it may.
Well, Mark, tell the little story about Old Woody and what happened this weekend.
Yeah. So Old Woody is a basically a fountain effect, but it's shorter duration, like an hour for a lot of them. So it's a kind of a Rod of Wonder style alcohol that's a running gag / thing.
I got it.
In Steven's campaigns
for like 10 years.
Many years.
Yeah.
And so
like an old Woodford Reserve, but
yes,
something like
it's actually Old Woody, because it can only be stored in wood, because if you try to put in anything else, it eats through it.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jason McDonald, who's one of Steven's players for decades, sent me a list of like what some of the effects have been, and I added a few to it so that there would be 33 effects that each had a 3% chance, and then a 100 that does 2 effects. So we rolled randomly because they were doing a bar hopping contest other than Steven, who decided he wasn't doing it, but he was going to cheat. He was going to cheat to get a winning card that said he went to all of the bars first.
I broke my own game.
And the prize was they found this old rare alcohol, which turned out to be Old Woody, but I didn't say it at first. I wanted to surprise Steven because
I didn't know.
I had not told him that I had taken what Jason McDonald sent me and actually turned it into mechanics yet, like on my list of things. I just said, I'm preparing for the game. And I did it to prepare for the game. But so they drank it. And what happened was Vanessa's Sprite became chartreuse colored.
Okay.
Steven's rogue thought that Vanessa's Sprite was like an alchemist character who she was not. Like that was his best friend.
My best friend. Who was really tiny suddenly and flying.
Linda's Leshy learned a huge amount of information, lore, gaining trained and a +3 item bonus in the lore skill for this one obscure cave area nearby, and she could not stop talking about it when she drank the alcohol. That was like the drunken knowledge. And then No Nat Ones got the real good one because he gained resistance 5 to piercing and bludgeoning damage, and
he turned to wood
5 to fire.
Yep.
Because his dragon's scales turned into wood,
and that is awesome.
And then
he was the cloistered cleric, so he had like no AC,
of course,
backliner. But for whatever reason, I still don't know why, because he seemed like appalled when he saw what happened after that. Like he cast magic weapon on the fighter, and like the big battle was 6. It was actually an extreme +1 battle with 6 level 1 enemies against their 4 level 1 PCs and a beetle they had befriended. So he casts magic weapon on the fighter and he just moves away. The fighter has a reach weapon and is kind of protecting the group, and the sorcerer had cast a protector tree. No Nat Ones moved away, and everyone else is like, we're staying where the fighter's protecting us, and there's a protector tree.
Yep.
Yeah. So all of the enemies,
all 6.
So he was behind a stalagmite that covered 2 of the 8 spaces around him, but the 6 enemies could fit all of the remaining spaces.
Right. So he got hexa flanked.
Fortunately, he only got quadra flanked because of where the stalagmite was.
Got it.
Especially since the enemies had sneak attack, so it would have been bad.
This is like the worst case scenario.
Yes.
Only 2 of the enemies actually were in a flank at the time that they acted, right? Because one had to go in,
sure.
The flank, etc. Yeah. So he was like, Mark, you're not attacking me 12 times, are you? And I was like, yes. He was like, I'm dead. He just like threw his hands up in the air. I'm dead. What is going on? And then it the first one attacked him and like kind of missed. The second one, which had a flank, got like a nat 20 and critted and actually did a lot of damage through the resistance. He's like, I'm almost dead.
Right.
The second one.
But then the rest,
all the rest couldn't hurt him at all.
Yeah, they kept
Even the
hitting.
one that hit with the sneak attack, I rolled low.
That's so good.
And they kept hitting.
So he was just like freaking out, and thanks to the random roll for the old Woody, he tanked. Then that turned the extreme +1 encounter around because he essentially almost negated their first round.
And now that is something you'll probably remember forever, as opposed to just some regular fight.
And I just did an entire podcast about this, and basically what I said is we don't play role-playing games to win fights or to level up, or I don't even tell them, I don't even to make interesting stories. I play role-playing games today, right? It's like the old Mitch Hedberg joke. Do you want a frozen banana? And I say, I don't want a frozen banana, so no, but I want a regular banana later, so yeah, I'll take it, right? Like, you are playing the game now so that you can make memories that you can remember weeks, months, years, decades later. And I tell this all the time about how some of my favorite memories, I don't remember the campaign. Might not even remember the characters' names, but I'll remember that moment when my character got attacked by 6 creatures and was randomly made out of wood, and they didn't do any damage to him and he survived. And those moments just live with you. And role-playing games create those moments better than any other game that I've ever experienced. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about role-playing games, why I've played them for so long. And so hearing moments like that, where this isn't something that was expected, but it happened anyways, it gives it this sense of realness, like that it wasn't scripted like television, where, oh, that was supposed to happen. No, that wasn't supposed to happen. This was clearly an emergent event that the chaos of the universe sort of gifted to us. And I just love stories like that. I just love it.
I mean, we don't have enough time. We could do a whole episode on this, but it's like, I've never seen anything once. It's so we were it was a homebrew 4E game, and it was the final fight. And Seth was the GM, and Seth literally said, "This is it. Tonight it's ending one way or the other. Like, we're ending the campaign. It's not going another session. This is it." And I swear to God, I've never seen this. Like, we were literally wheeling the dice. Like, every roll was the perfect roll. Like, nat 20 this, nat 20. Like, we couldn't believe it. Now, to the point.
Yeah.
To the point that it was on top of a volcano.
Yeah.
And Chris Beamer, once again, fell into the volcano.
Right.
And Seth's like, "Oh, you're dead." And Chris is like, "There's no way I'm dead. No way." I grab onto a ledge, do this. And he goes, "I'll tell you what. You roll a 1d100. You get a 1, you survive. You land on something."
Yeah. And he
rolls a 1.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I was like, we were all like, "Oh my, what is going on?" Like, every roll, I've never seen it. Like, every roll was perfect. And we still talk about that to say, like, and he survived. I mean, it was amazing. Right. Amazing.
It is. I have my own story. I won't go into it either, but long story short, it involved a player who knew what the final adventure / monsters was of the campaign, and joked about how cool it would be if he got a Vorpal sword and killed it in one blow. And then that actually happened. And it was, and it was rolled out in the open. This was like, you had to threat and then crit. This was 3rd edition. And it's like, the fact that happened, it like really happened. Like, I get it didn't happen because it's a tabletop role-playing game, but it did happen. It wasn't like a cutscene, right? Like, it wasn't like, oh, you beat the monster, then we go to the cutscene where the cool dwarf barbarian cuts his head off. No, like, this happened in the game, and it's such an incredible experience. It's almost like you play 5 campaigns, 2 or 3 of them are going to be bad, just so that you can get the 2 good campaigns that you'll remember for the rest of your life.
Well, take notes, Mark.
Campaigns aren't that.
Take notes, Mark.
I hope a better ratio.
Because I hope this is what we get with the Eldamon. When you capture, befriend them, you find them, you level them up, you get these like, oh, there's only a 1% chance that I can find the super rare one. You get it. You're like, oh, I get that rare one.
Chasing stuff like that is very cool. But we got it way off topic, but that's okay. That's what we do here.
It's actually not that off topic, because the whole point of randomness and why I was saying about this is that this is actually going to be a fairly big part in the slot machine mechanic of, you don't know what your character and how they will build out exactly. It's going to be based on what Eldamon you befriend and how you decide to organically level up your character. So
think about this. Let's say we have space as an element, and let's say, since we talked about space being kind of esoteric, let's say none of the space Eldamon is common. Let's say they're all actually pretty hard to find. But what if you're playing and just you roll and you found a space Eldamon like right near the beginning of the campaign?
Exactly.
Like, that story about that character, like, even in the world, the NPCs will know it's not very common. So you're like one of the only space users, other than like these high level, like high ranked adventurers who are using it. Like, but in people just will assume different things about you. It tells a whole story already.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I'm in.
You're in.
I'm looking forward to seeing the development. I'm looking forward to seeing some sneak previews, and definitely looking forward to giving you my thoughts and opinions. But I mean, I'm sure everybody is excited for another Kickstarter.
Well, we're giving. I definitely bang for your buck. There'll be a lot for this one, and there'll be a lot of bang for buck.
Steven, you always give that.
I do.
Yeah, I was about to say, the value has been there so far, so I think everybody's been pretty happy from that perspective.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, we try really hard.
Good of a deal the people who bought the adventure path in the Kickstarter are getting, because
that's not even fair. Because people thought it was like $75. Yeah, to people like $75, they thought it was too much. I'm like, this thing is going to probably be as big as, I'm looking at this Absalon book that's 400 pages. It's going to be bigger than that.
And that doesn't count the second book.
I know. There's 2 books. It's going to be like 600, 700 pages. It's going to be insane.
I saw somebody posting they were selling the Strength 1000 6 episodes used, and they were selling it for $145. So I mean,
I
can
saw
only
that.
imagine.
Yeah, I saw that. Actually, I actually saw that same post. I was like, huh?
I
was
was
a little
like, oh my
odd.
God.
I know. I was like, that was a little odd. Well,
Yeah.
some of these you can't find anymore. You know,
I
some
know,
of
it's
these,
true. It's true.
They're sold out completely. Why they
All right,
reprint them?
gentlemen.
But yes, we must go because 2 hours is your limit. 2.5 hours.
That is
What are you
true.
doing tonight? What are you streaming tonight?
Well, so tonight we aren't streaming our actual play.
I know. I
we're-
was looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're doing it every other week because the
Boo.
intent is that we are going to use that off week to do an actual play of something that is not D20.
So what are you doing?
That is yet to be decided, but things that have been voted on by the Knights of Last Call Patreon include things like maybe running not one shots, but like what I would call multi shots, like 3 to 5, 3 to 6 episode sort of mini campaigns. People would love to see the Knights take on Monster Hearts. That is one that has been sort of voted upon. Monster Hearts or Thirsty Sword Lesbians, some sort of PBTA game with a more social bend to it, a little bit more gravitas. Blades in the Dark, Dungeon World, Legend of the Five Rings 5th edition, not 5th edition D&D, but Legend of the Five Rings, which is in its 5th edition. There have been a couple oddball ones that have sort of been off the edge, but something not D20 based. And I think that would be a lot of fun to do with the guys and expose some of my newer players who haven't played these games to more games, explores audience members to different games, and kind of encourage them to learn and grow from those. So.
Awesome.
And
Mark has our episode tonight at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. We are almost done with Book of the Dead, but we're not actually going to finish it because it's right after PaizoCon. So we're going to do our yearly special PaizoCon roundup episode that doesn't go on YouTube, but is like, hey, a lot of things happened at PaizoCon, and here is a summary. So you like for people who want to watch one episode about it, but not all of the different not all of the different panels.
And I am going to a Met game.
You're always doing. Mark and I are out here being real nerds, and you're out here going and watching sports.
Steven just has a background in everything, so he is doing everything.
I am. What do you want? I'm the jack of all trades. I literally define the feat.
But
right.
Yeah, so but tonight we haven't started off our second game, so it's just going to be a regular GM live stream, hang out with Derik. We'll probably do more spells and magic. We're currently making our way through level 5 of every single Pathfinder 2 spell being ranked.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious about that. I almost want to do that with Mark just to see what he thinks of them. You've done that on your own channel, though, Mark. You've gone through the spells, but you don't really rank them. You just say like what they do and their abilities.
I don't really rank them, and I think that I don't really rank as many as Derik, probably as being like all the way at the bottom.
Oh, I'm sure Derik is like, they all suck except for these 3.
Yeah, let's just say we have a reputation for being harsh critics. But then next Tuesday, so a week from now, we are going to do our Quest for the Frozen Flame episode 2, and then it's off to Origins. So
I'm going to go too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to, I got to check what their recording policy is, but I'm hoping to, I'm definitely bringing my podcasting stuff. I hope to do some podcasts. We got some patrons coming in. So it'll be fun to do a podcast with some of our patrons and some of our loyal viewers and followers. But it'd also be cool to maybe try to see if I could figure out a way to, finagle a live stream from the con.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, I know. I just, we'll see what my, network
tolerance
support. Yeah,
exactly. That's what happened to me because I'm like PaizoCon. I'm like, maybe we'll do a whole bunch of streams, and then we did the official streams, which was like 7-8 hours of streams, and I was like, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah,
I'm too tired to do others.
Selfishly, I mean, it's Origins. I haven't been to a game con since before COVID, so I would like to play some games.
Yeah, I've never been to Origins, and I've heard good things. I don't know how long I'm going, but I got tickets, and I'm at least going. Part of it to talk to press and other people about Eldamon and the Battlezoo stuff, because there's a lot there. And also now we're in a weird hybrid because in theory, since we're doing both a card game and a TTRPG, we're kind of like now in the card game, board game area too. So, which is, because that's standalone, that like doesn't even, you could just buy that and play that. You don't even have to play the RPG aspect. So
yeah, I mean, Origins has always had a very strong like more traditional board card game basis to it. It's not as role-playing heavy. But you know, there's a fair amount of stuff going on there. My only disappointing thing is one of my favorite things from recent conventions in the last 10 years is Indie Games on Demand, which is sort of a nonprofit group that runs wonky independent games, but they are not going to be at Origins, unfortunately, this year. But just because there were still concerns about COVID policies and stuff like that. And they just decided not to. I don't think they're going to be going this year to Gen Con either. But, you know, that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be some fun.
Are you going to Gen Con?
I have a badge. I don't know.
It's going to be so good this year. This is because
the problem.
Be nuts.
There's two problems, Stephen. Problem number one is hotels. Problem number two.
I got multiple hotels. Okay. I give you that.
Paying for the hotel that is pricey. And then the second option is the second problem is that it's I didn't register for any events or anything like that because I wasn't sure I was going to go. But I mean, they sell out now instantaneous.
Oh yeah. So. I wanted to look for events. They're all gone. And
they're all gone. I mean, don't get me wrong. For many years, I buy a bunch of generics and I show up and they usually try to fit you in or someone doesn't show up.
Well, I'll put it this way. Oh, for the Pathfinder games, I'll get into those. I finagle my ways in those. That's not a problem.
I don't go to Gen Con to play the games that I play at home though. That's
right. Oh no, that's actually what I was going to say. It's like I mostly play board games and I'll either bring some or I'll just go to the open board game area and we just play stuff. Or to be honest, I even just demo and just find stuff. I mean,
demoing used to be what I used to love to do, but then when Gen Con got super popular, and dare I say too big for its own britches, and it really started attracting a bigger, wider family crowd, and you had a lot more people. You had to wait to get into a demo, and I lost a lot of it lost a lot of credit for me. But I mean, it's still the best 4 days in gaming, and you just have to be creative about what you do with it. But anyways.
it's hard to get into stuff. I agree because I looked at I had like a pre-made list, and then I'm like, what am I going to get into? Sold out. I'm like, I guess nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, okay.
That is a lot. That is a lot of people's experience as well. So,
we're on the schedule, Mark. You didn't even know that. You know that I got us into the schedule in Gen Con.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. To talk about Eldamon and talk about RPG Superstar and all this. Actually, the same talks.
Sweet.
So I just got approved
too, assuming that like case rates and other things haven't
I'll go
changed
either
around.
way.
Even if I'm not, we'll somehow
we'll figure something out. But I did
stream me in for all those panels.
Yeah, so we'll do a panel on Eldamon. We'll do panels on building monsters because the RPG Superstar.
I bet there's gonna be a lot of people at Gen Con who want to see about Eldamon.
Yeah. So
especially since the Kickstarter,
it will be happening during Gen
Con.
Would
have already
it will be happening during
when we want to.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it looks like there's a fair amount of PFS happening at Origins. Bunch of bounties.
Oh yeah, well Pathfinder Society is I might actually play the special this year. Every single year for 10 plus years I've run the specials. I run Pathfinder and Starfinder Society specials, and it's my favorite thing. And then I'm turning into the old man because I'm like, I don't think I want to run the specials anymore because it's a lot of work running those things. And now I have when that's what all I was doing is running them. I could spend the time and running the podcast. I have too much, and I think I'll play a special, but I'm not going to run one.
Sounds good.
Or if I do run it, I'd run it for private. That's actually what I did last time.
Right.
For only people.
Derik has been trying to help us end.
We need 100 likes to let Derik leave.
Wow, Steven.
I know. Would that be mean?
Shameless.
I know.
The secret is he can end at any time. And
always a pleasure to be on the show, gentlemen.
Yes, it's always fun, and I'll send you playtest rules.
Yeah. Shoot me some stuff. I'd love to take a look at it.
What we have right now is really rough.
Well, let's put it this way. It is it's like a page, but it'll be a page of lovely, beautiful rules.
One of those mind abilities I already want to switch out.
All right, there you
go. he's already like, don't judge me on that one. Don't judge me on that one. All right, but that sounds good. And again, and I know that we're definitely interested in the RFC stuff, and we have to do the Dragon Ancestry review, but the Battlezoo Bestiary was a great crowning achievement. So I think if this becomes your at least first magnum opus, I think it'll be a cool success. And again, I think expanding the game horizontally and not just, within the same vertical, I think is very cool.
That's what we're doing. I mean, if you think about it, our people seeing what we're doing, it's like a lot of people are doing it vertically. It's probably the best way to describe it. It's like I'm going horizontal, and it's very hard to do that.
Yep, it is. And it gets back to what we were discussing, and I was asking Mark about earlier, right? Because now you're breaking new ground, right? And that means that it's harder because there's balance issues, and you have to figure out.
It's harder, but that's why people trust us and establish.
It's not as hard as designing a new
right. Well, that's also where having Mark on your staff is a good, assurance to assuage those concerns. Because
that's exactly what we wanted to do. Like,
here's the guy
I'm
that
sure
built it.
People bought the first book and they weren't sure, and then they see it and they see dragons and they're like, okay, now they trust us,
right? And
they see what we're coming out with. So when we announced this, if I announced this last year, I don't know how well it would have done, but people can trust us and know that like we probably know what we're doing. So
yep. Sounds good.
All right. Go have fun in your streams, and I'll go watch the Mets destroy the Washington Nationals.
7 p.m. Eastern, Knights of Last Call. All right, everybody. I will see you guys later.
Bye.